Huh? No, we got here. Yes. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilman Camilleri? Here. Councilman Conti?
Here.
Councilman Halco? Here. Councilwoman Mazer? Here. Council President Samalu?
Here, please rise and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been sent to all council members on August 14, 2014, and to all legal newspapers in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
The public is hereby advised that any statements made during the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Saddlebrook may not be privileged or protected, and that persons or entities who take issue with such comments or are offended by same may and have in the past sought legal redress through the courts. Any member of the public who addresses the council speaks for themselves, not for the council.
The order of business tonight is going to be as follows. We have someone from another town who has field turf, I should say turf. Field turf is the actual name of the company, who put it in their town some years ago, and he's agreed to come here just briefly just to tell you about the council, about the history and the citizens, about the history of Veterans Field, and we're going to take it a little out of order and give deference to him as a former elected official to talk about that. Then we are going to go and hopefully we have Perry DiPiazza, who is the representative from Field Turf here. We're going to start with the council is going to have some questions for Mr. DiPiazza, who will answer them hopefully. And after that, what I'm going to do is call up any commissioners that are here to, hopefully the commissioners are taking a look at this, and we've shown them some prior plans. This is not much different than before, but if they'd like to address the council, they will, and then we're going to open it up to the general public. But that's the order that we're going to go in. Okay, first, Mr. Brizzi. You know what? Why don't you just address, why don't you turn around and just talk that way?
Hi, my name is Joel Brizzi. I'm the council. Andrew had asked me to kind of explain, it's not even so much of an opinion, but more really what we did in East Rutherford. Can you hear me? I'll speak louder.
I think we just bought new microphones. I don't know if we can use them. See if they work. Hello?
You can hear me.
Hello?
I'll speak louder. You can speak louder. So karaoke.
Larry, I'm just going to tell you now. You keep bursting out stuff. I'm going to ask you. If you don't need to know how you can't keep doing this.
Just speak out here. Speak.
What is the microphone on?
I don't know if it's on here.
Hello? Hello?
Hold on.
I've never been known not to be heard. Loud man. So basically, those of you that are familiar, if you shopped at BJ's, right across the street from BJ's is one of our fields that we've done. And it became, it might have been a heated issue at the time, political issues. Some people were for it, some people weren't for it, for whatever reason. And one thing I learned in politics is that I don't think either side is right. I think that that's your opinion and that's my opinion. So what I can tell you is we had all the issues that all the towns have. We had geese, we had flooding, we had, 3/4 of the field would be dirt halfway through the season. And now with not only football, we don't have lacrosse, but then you have soccer on the field. And now football used to start in the last week of August. Now it starts, it's just constant use on the field. And we would water our fields. We didn't pay for the water. We had wells, but we'd have to water our fields. We'd have to have a DPW guy out there every day putting out these hoses, taking them back down because they were practicing. Friday afternoons, lining the field. All of the expenses that go with a grass field. We never really were a town that was resodding it. And the way our field was situated at the time was the baseball field played across the track. So you had to get crazy bounces and all kinds of stuff. So we had these huge bleachers that were cement and stone, and we had people telling us that those intimidate people, don't take them down. We had a brick wall. We had all kinds of objections that you could ever imagine. On the other side of town, we have the recreation or the schools actual use these fields, and it's 2 softball fields, a large diamond, a small diamond. We did tennis courts. We did a lot of things. And East Rutherford back in the day, they used to use these fields 50 years ago. They used to dump stuff. So on a hot day like today, you would actually see tar bubbling up through the field. It was just a horrible situation. So our mayor, Jim Casella, who was a state track runner athlete, felt as do I, that athletics and recreation is a very, very strong part of your community. And I always say, as an elected official, I think that the 3 things that make up the importance of a community and attracting people to buy here and attracting people to live here or live in East Rutherford, taxes are the first thing that people look at. Education is the second thing people look at. Recreation is very important. And to me, a very important part is our senior citizens. And I don't think any one of those is more important than the other one. I think they're equally important. I know taxes, fixed incomes, I'm well aware of it. I'm well aware of a bond could go into the cost. But if you look at 2 things from what I understand, we spent $10 million on 2 fields, two complexes, I should say, because we redid the Little League and all that stuff. It was probably one of the most significant votes of my council tenure, because it was a lot of money. There was objection. There were people talking about the field could light it on fire. I mean, it was in the front page of the Record. Someone standing there with a match. I mean, we had every objection you could possibly think of. But the maintenance, we haven't seen the geese. They don't even exist. There's nothing for them to eat. There's nothing for them to feast on. Geese poop, which is horrible. It's bacteria, it's disease, it's all kinds of stuff. Gone, eliminated. We don't line the fields anymore. I mean, there's almost no buddy needed down there other than they put out the markers the day of the game, the sideline markers, the markers that you hold, maybe on Monday to go, and they clean up the garbage. But again, there's no watering, there's no lining, there's no lining. I mean, they lined the baseball field because the one thing we didn't do was we put dirt around our bases, and we're actually getting prices to remove that and put orange turf, because then there's really no maintenance there. But those are just some of the features. The other features are, athletics lead to what I think is sportsmanship. Children learn that, hey, and I know this is a recreation field. We did our main field, which they both play on. But you attract people, you keep people here. And I think the next step, if this field gets done, is that you should probably do the high school field, whoever's in charge of that, because athletes and education are very, very important in a community. Just trying to think of some of the other points. And as far as what it's cost us since then, we've just recently, our fields are in 10 years. So we get some rips. We've had to have some rips or repairs done, and maybe spend $25,000 or $30,000 after 10 years to have somebody come in and repair these rips. We have every once in a while, I don't know if it's every year, we have a company come in and fluff. I think we bought the machine out that fluffs the rubber inside. I don't know exactly the makeup of your field. If he's here, he'll be able to. Oh, how you doing, Perry? He actually, I'm here speaking. He didn't even do our field at the time. It was a different company. So I'm not here on behalf of that company either. So, and it's not that I don't like you, Perry. It's just at the time, right, we had a different supplier at the time. So, but I think that, the minimum maintenance that we've done is amazing. And here's the key factor, which is, to me, it speaks volumes. East Rutherford is a very blue-collar town. And all the other towns around us have higher taxes and better possible grades from ratings from schools and all that stuff. But guess what? We were the first one to do our fields. And guess who was next? Rutherford came next. Hasbrook Heights came next. Lyndhurst came next. Woodridge did it 2 years ago. It's just the thing to do with the amount of usage and the amount of sports and the amount of activities that now go on your fields. And you will never, ever cancel a game. Whatever that means to you is that we've never had to postpone a game because of bad field conditions. We actually were in the States, a few years ago. They won the States. They actually removed the snow from the field so that they could play the game, and they played it right, right then. I don't know, Council President, if you had any questions, you said you might.
Just one. You spent $10 million in these two fields. Did you do a referendum on that?
We didn't do a referendum, and again, like I said, our mayor, I guess I followed his lead, or I have the same beliefs that he has, and it was a big step. And you apparently you're getting grant money here. We didn't get any grant money. We might have gotten $100,000 to do studies or something, or to do the prep work for the field, the design. But that money is, and we're probably 3/4 of the way through paying for it, and it's still in great condition. To me, it's like the crown jewel of Southern Bergen County, and you'll have people coming to your town and saying, "Oh my God, this is a beautiful facility. You guys really did the right thing here." And to me, it's really been I can't even think of a downside, one negative downside to what we've done at our field.
How
Not
many
even.
community meetings like this did you have?
I just think we did it at a regular council meeting. We heard if any public wanted to be heard from, and we didn't listen. As a council person, we're elected to make these tough decisions. And again, there may be 3 people up here that agree, or 4. It doesn't mean that they're right, wrong, dumb, idiots, wrong part. It's just people have opinions, and my opinion is that this is truly a great investment at $1 million, $1.1 million project, and like half of that's being funded or part of it, or is that being?
1.1 would be the most probable bond. The remainder would be its contingencies, engineering, and monies that are between the grant and money that the town is paying.
And I don't know if you know how the granting works, it's use it or lose it. So, and you can't say, hey, you know what, we don't want to use it here. We want to use it over at the duck pond, or we want to use it on this street over here. It's earmarked for that project. So, if you have that kind of money sitting there and you don't take advantage of it, and from what I understand, this council or this town has you guys have a senior center, I should say, and apparently there's a senior project coming that's proposed. So they're taking care of the right things. This is just one of the pieces of the pie to make this a great community. And that's it. I have nothing to gain to be here. I just strongly opinionated about what
Well, I just have a couple of questions for you. Maybe you should answer. The first thing is, what year was your field done? Do you remember
about
what year?
10 years. Perry, about 10 years ago our field was done?
Yeah, I think 9.
9
10
years.
years. The only other thing is, you talked about drainage and flooding problems. Did you ever have a flood or a drainage problem on the field?
Yeah, fortunately, other than what, I think some of what we've done have helped, Perry could probably comment, or the engineer, when they build these fields, they build a skeletal system underneath. Sorry. Sure. They build a skeletal drainage system underneath that can hold like hundreds of thousands of gallons of water before it actually releases. Perry, is that correct? It's thousands and thousands of gallons of water that can be retained in that system before it gets released out into drainage.
Yeah.
So, now it's never. We always had water issues because if you've driven under that trestle,
Right.
it's always was flooded. So
But
yeah.
your field has never been subject to that type of flooding.
Years ago we had water issues.
Right, I'm talking present.
No, it's actually, I think what they did in the engineering design is it retains so much of that water, and that you got to see when they put it in.
No, I played on your field. I'm very familiar with it. The only other thing is,
Did you win or lose?
in some years won, some years lost. But
It's an
you
intimidating
take the good and
field.
the bad, But the other thing is, like with your field, it's a little bit different than our situation because we're doing like a multi-purpose type field. You have your football field and your baseball field. You have a soccer field too.
Yes.
So that's the thing we're looking at, like a multi-purpose type field
On the actual field.
on our actual.
Which in my unprofessional, I'm not a turf professional, but I could tell you that makes it even more demanding because there's more. Do you have lacrosse in this town?
Yes.
Yeah, you have soccer, girls and boys. You have baseball. It's the amount of sports that get played today on the fields. Grass just can't hold up. There's no comparison into wear and tear and maintenance. No comparison. This really, to me, in most towns, it's about dollars spent, and it's the minimum investment. I don't know if it would be a 10-year bond. I mean, it's just in your maintenance costs alone, I would believe, probably cover most of the cost of what it costs you to bond for that field. It's really minimal. All right, Coach.
Now, we talked about, there's a difference between a sloppy field or a wet field and a flooded field. Did you ever have a situation, either before or after this, where the actual field was like covered with a foot of water, either before or after?
Never, we literally have had 3-inch rainstorms, all night rain, and at 1 o'clock kicked the ball off.
Even before you went to,
Oh, we had, it was terrible. Our prior field,
did it go underwater? Not just get wet and sloppy, but was it actual underwater?
I think where the field is actually situated is further away from Route 7. The old field was further away from 17. That part of 7, where the new field is now, used to flood. And that was basically the Babe Ruth field and the practice area for high school. But our actual field, you know, it was always just a mucky, muddy mess, you know, and there were games canceled. But with this drainage on this field, it's just amazing. You could walk out in your socks, you know, an hour or two after it stops raining, and the water just soaks right into and I'm not even up to the current standards. It's probably, I would believe that the technology is better today than it was 10 years ago when we designed those fields. Pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Is it sand or is it just rubber?
No, it's actually sown underneath the field, and then inside of the field is sand and rubber. Yeah, if you don't mind, my name's Perry, I'm Field Turf Company. Just to elaborate on that, the difference between natural grass fields and synthetic turf applications, as Mr. Brissi was explaining, is that a natural grass field, the soils fill up with water and become saturated. Even though there's drainage systems in there, actually the fields rely on surface runoff to drain the field. So you'll see a lot of natural grass fields, or if the field that you play on has a crown in it, in the center, it's designed to have a crown so that when the soils fill up and they're not accepting water any, the water will run somewhere, and then you try to catch it in catch basins or drink. So the difference is synthetic turf works exactly the opposite. Here you're building pretty much a flat field. The water vertically goes through the sand and rubber particles in the field, through the backing of the turf field, and into a bed of stone, or let's call it a swimming pool of drainage stone. And then there's piping underneath that. So the engineer can design something that will take water immediately off the surface and store it underneath the field. So if you're getting 3 or 4 days worth of rain, you have this big pool underneath the field, it just keeps filling up, but it stays off the surface of the field, and then you evacuate the water as the design calls for. There could be an overflow pipe. As it gets to a certain level, then you can discharge it into the storm system or whatever. So it's the total opposite of the way natural grass fields drain.
Any other council questions for Joe?
So what about safety? They talk about safety issues, kids getting hurt on natural or on turf. Have you had any?
No, and I know my buddy happens to be the trainer for the Giants for 33 years, and I remember when they first put in that first turf they had, it was like playing on cement. I mean, it was literally indoor-outdoor carpeting on rocks. Now with the rubber, I would say that he would have the statistics. I would say there's less injuries on turf fields than there is on a hard dirt surface. Injuries have not even. It's for me to sit here 9 years later and tell you, and I wish I could have brought 10 kids with me that played on the championship teams or that play on our fields, and just tell you that what a pleasure it is to be able to play. And I know this is your youth, but your youth feeds your high school, and if you know. It just breeds for better programs and a better community. That's just my strong opinion.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
We got a couple of questions.
Want to? Again, I don't want this to be a midnight thing, but if you got a couple of questions, ask me.
Yes.
They're one of the lowest tax rates in the county.
Okay.
They could afford it when they did.
Okay.
Number two, there's an article that contradicts everything you said.
From
A woman,
Carol Coronado? From East Rutherford? Again, I said it from when I started. Everybody's entitled to opinions.
that's right.
And
There's nobody here spoke to the opposite of what you're saying.
now there is.
Yeah,
So.
I'm going to bring this article. It's not me. This is a woman, her name is Marcia Wrigley. She says, "Turf field, not wait for court." You want me to read this article? No.
What town is it from?
She said Washington Township is considering spending $2.3 billion to replace Memorial Field with synthetic turf. Glenrock residents, meanwhile, will vote on a $3 million bond for synthetic turf in the November general election. Their neighbors, Trayville, that's their English, would stop both towns in their tracks. Ridgewood would spend some $168,000 to repair 4 turf fields damaged in an August 1st flash flood. Now just imagine if that rain that they got Long Island, if that storm moved a little bit west and we got hit with 13 inches of rain, what would happen? That turf in Yorktown would be in the St. River.
That's not necessarily true, and I'm not gonna get into a debate because this is not my meeting here.
Ridgewood incurs costly damage from recent flash flooding. I'll give you a date. This is the top of vast sums spent post-storm turf remediation since its installation less than 4 years ago. Within the first year, at least 5 storms caused turf repair, 1 displacement high school graduation. Yet we keep pouring tax money into turf remediation, and then the latest storm will be the last. It's time to cut our losses. In 2009, a $48 million plus full renovation bond initiative barely passed, with strong opposition to its allocation of $7 million in sold turf. As at a March 2010 hearing on the proposed turf, with the State Department of Environmental Protection, residents cited flooding, safety, heat, repair costs, and other issues. The DEP approved the project and the turf was duly installed. Concerns expressed that they will realize with the weeks of installation. Those in charge are having trouble visiting their mistake. It was you who were going broke over the fiasco, which is costing a fortune. And county facing with yet another wealthy build out, we would have better to replace the grass and not debug the place again. The contract was quickly signed and repairs begun. Towns struggle with this decision. Please note, the turf on the other side of the fence is not always green.
Right. And there will be just last comment, then I'm done.
You're reading a letter to the editor by somebody in Washington Township? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
So that's somebody who was against the turf. That's their
Well,
opinion.
he's for the turf, so I don't understand.
Yeah. No, but you're reading
Yeah,
just,
it's just
that was a
somebody's-
letter, yeah, that wasn't a newspaper article, right?
You want me to ask you the question right now?
No,
Before you
not at
go-
all.
Before you go to the.
Not at all.
I want to ask you the
You
question.
could do it later. But I'm just asking, that's a letter to the editor you're reading.
Just the last comment that I have is if you asked 10 people or 20 people, we're going to spend $3 million on the senior building, we're going to spend $3 million on a police station, or we're going to spend $3 million on recreation, you'll get 9 different opinions. 3 people say this. It's all personal, and that's that woman's opinion, and that's perfectly fine. She's entitled to that. But I could tell you, if you go visited Lyndhurst and Woodridge and Rutherford and these towns that no longer have mud and turf and have Woodridge resodded their field every 3 years, the cost, and I don't know the numbers, they could tell you the numbers, it's so minimal annually in your taxes that the investment is well worth it. And again, opinion. And then
Did you ever go to our location where
I actually played on they used to put sawdust down to keep the muck.
we keep them up? Okay, now, the East Rutherford, is that a designated flood zone or wetland?
It was, we're mucky.
But I'm saying, on your actual tax map, was that considered a flood zone?
I would say yes, because if you've ever driven on 17 by the bridge, it's always flooded.
And to me, like I said, you have what you call a jewel.
Right.
You have refreshment stands, you have bathrooms. We have nothing. And after we do this turf, we have no room to do anything. We can't park cars, we can't go to the bathroom. The press box, I think the council could make a fun of. At our other location, which is the high school, which said you'll probably recommend to the town or the council to say that, we're 3/4 of the way done. We have a rubberized track. If we could do the drainage the way this gentleman or Mr. Costa says, we're there.
But from when I asked that question, from what I understand, the grant can't be transferred to there.
But listen, we can put 800,000 into that field.
Right.
Easily. 800,000 went up Baton Island.
Just so you know, our field is like 10 acres or 9 acres.
I know, it's very
We don't have one parking spot.
No.
We don't have one.
Everybody
But
parks up.
no, it's
You're
funny.
not
We
in a
have a game. There's
residential
1,000 people that they park. They
You're
found
not in a
something.
residential area.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you are. You're not in a residential area.
Joel, thank you very
The
much.
factories got closed, the old DPW,
Give it a stop.
everybody parks all over the place, over there, the bank, You have perfect things. We used to have a perfect parking lot.
Next, Mr. Dominio.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members, and thank you for your service. I just want to come here because there's so much misinformation going on about Veterans Field, and quite frankly, I take full responsibility for Veterans Field. I will tell you, I take full responsibility for Veterans Field, the bad as well as the good. I think what's not being said here, had we not purchased Veterans Field, if we go back 12 years, and it was 2002, we would have had Mayhill Street over on Veterans Field, plus another 100 units on top of that. Weighing all that, the best alternative for recreation in this township was the building of Veterans Field. I bought it, I designed it, along with my council, and Flo Mazer was part of that, and we built it. And did we satisfy everybody? No, we did not. But there was a plan in place for Veterans Field, and I don't think anybody's looking at this plan. The plan was, as we go along in the years with Veterans Field, we were going to put a retention basin there. We were going to put a French drain there. We've already encroached, and this is an engineering issue. I don't even know that the DEP will allow you to alter what you have there already. The field is the way it is because the DEP allowed us to encroach, I think it was 25%, where you now want to put the girls' softball team. That, I think, is something that I have not heard from the engineering end of it, nor have I heard from the council. But
The girls' softball isn't going to change.
okay, but
exactly
that's why
what it's now.
the field configuration, and we went through this drill, and I went to Mr. Casal and East Rutherford when they built that field. Beautiful field, no question about it. And it's a beautiful field if we could do that here in Saddlebrook, but the application at the time did not apply itself for Saddlebrook. To spend $1 million, and the price was about $1 million plus the drainage that we were going to face there. We were better suited to address the facilities that we needed because the plan was to move the water department to the DPW site, put the additional parking there to get some of that parking relief off the streets. We put the arborvitaes there, and that was the initial plan, but I don't see the as-built plans that we have and or the drawings that we have. We're reinventing the wheel. The engineer went out and did all this work that we've already did. And the decision that you're going to make on $1 million, and I'm not saying whether right or wrong, we can concede that we're all for the kids of this community. That's why we're all here. Everybody's here for the community. You have to balance it all out. I've met with Stonegate, and so good to see a lot of the people from Stonegate here I haven't seen in a while. We spoke with those people. We spoke with the people on Dewey. We knew that there was going to be some problems with the lighting and the parking there. It was a work in progress, and it's still a work in progress. It's just a matter of how you want to do it. But you have to have all the information. I heard Mr. Conti and Mr. Halko say, well, what do? We do nothing. No, you need to do something. You need to do something. But what's the best alternative? We're going to spend $1 million on a turf field, or can we put a retention basin in there that we do in housing developments and everything else we do mainly in the township to offset some of that water? Is it the best money spent? Are you going to get the best bang for your buck? Many of you know me from when I was mayor. I didn't skimp on anything, as was indicated in some of the comments that were made. We wanted to provide the best for the community and keeping the whole community in our grasp. That application in East Rutherford did not apply for Saddlebrook at the time. Does it apply now? That's going to be a decision you guys are going to have to make. But you need to make an informed decision. There's a plan. I don't know if that plan was looked at. Mr. Costa would probably know if it was or not, or if it's workable or not. You got to be careful now what you do with that field. because any alteration of that field is going to affect the ball players. It wasn't meant to be a MetLife stadium. It was meant to be a recreational field for the township. That's what we built here, a recreational field, not MetLife Stadium. I like to have a new Mercedes. I can't afford it today. Just can't do it. But, I'm not going to sit here and criticize anybody. I did hear a lot of these comments that, we spent $7.7 million. We bought 3 parcels of land at that time. We took the DPW that we were paying $100,000 a year, and if you compute that, we're saved already $1 million for the township and moved it to the DPW site. We're not looking at the total picture. I don't think you guys got all the information, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm only here to give you the history because many of you were out of office at the time, were not in office at the time, or came into office after we started this process. And I think for $1 million and $1.4 million, and you're always going to have change orders. There's not a project in the world in the municipal government that you don't have change orders that you're going to have to consider. When you come up with the $400,000, there's amendments to that. You can amend that grant. You can extend that grant. You want to spend the $400,000 to match the $400,000? Did you consider the drainage? Did you consider the retention basin? Did you consider any of that planning that, because I haven't heard it publicly. You may have done it privately, but I haven't heard it publicly. These are the things that I would consider before you put a beautiful field that you already have. You have a field already. There is a field there. We want to make it pretty. We want to make it workable. We want to not have our kids get their feet wet sometimes. You got to weigh what you want to do. And it's your decision to make. But be informed. Know that there is a plan that we do have. Will it work? That's up to the professionals we're paying all this money for. It's a matter of the bang for the buck. It's always about the money. There's a lot of things Saddlebrook needs. There's a lot of things you guys are working hard for. But a field, a turf field, look beautiful, look very nice. But do we really need it or we just want it? There's a difference between a want and a need. And any other questions, I'll be glad to ask. And Joel, from East Rutherford, a councilman, long time. Again, beautiful field. The mayor there and I are friends. We've spoken about it 10 years ago, 11 years ago when we were doing this. And it just didn't apply at the time. It may apply now. I don't know. I don't have all the information you guys have.
Well, I just have one question for you. And, I've kind of been talking about it, trying to get some type of master plan in place for that whole complex. And maybe you could help shed a little light because, I've been there a long time and I still look at bathrooms as a need. And I look at a snack bar as a need. I also look for storage because I'm still currently involved and we do something and then it's going to be moved or we have to change it. So can you shed a little light on some type of master plan?
Well, look, if you want to spend $1 million for a brick and mortar building, you can do that with the existing garages. The mayor tomorrow can order all those vehicles out of that garage, have it cleaned, and brought those vehicles and everything else there to the DPW. Then you solve your cheerleading problem, your wrestling problem. You can go indoor sport, because that was the part of the plan. That garage was part of a plan that we were going to do. Keep in mind, when we did this, we were building a police department, we were doing roads, we were doing pump stations, we were doing a number of things, and we had to prioritize. And we still wanted to do the field for the kids. So yes, does it need work? And I heard that we didn't do it the right way, and well, what's the right way? What is the right way? The alternative was 245 housing units there. That was the alternative. And we would have been stuck with Mayhill Street and Rossell Lane. That's what the difference was. There's a lot you can do, and I just don't think, I'm sure some of you thought about it, but didn't know about it. And that's the reason why I'm here. But that garage was going to be gutted and used for cheerleading. Janine Costanzo and everyone else that I saw here, and Richie McKay I see here from wrestling, one of the commissioners, we've spoken about, and we have a plan for that. The former commissioner and I and a few of the other councilwomen, I think even Flo Mazer, was very familiar with what we wanted to do there. It's a matter where the priorities are going to go. The same, I just want to say to Mr. DiPiazza, the turf fields that are put up are absolutely beautiful. But the same application will also, I would think, apply, and I'm a layperson, but it's almost the same thing as a French drain and as a retention basin, as you would have on a natural field, which is naturally aspirated and naturally done, as opposed to a synthetic field that's going to be put into a flood zone. And that means you're going to have to alter that whole field to elevate it and do whatever you possibly have to do. And again, I don't know if the DEP is going to allow you to do that, Mr. Costa. It took us 2 years to get the permits. Any other questions? I'll be glad to ask. Mayor, thank you.
At this point, according to the agenda that we talked about before, it's time for the council to ask Mr. DiPiazza any questions. Any questions of Mr. DiPiazza?
Yeah, I have a couple. As far as the drainage goes, that has been put into place into this field, correct? So, Rob?
Yes.
And Mr. DiPiazza?
Yes.
The drainage will be able to handle any water that is in that area?
As you heard the councilman earlier, Ms. Rutherford, underneath the fields is basically a network of pipes. That's the way all these fields are built. So it's perforated pipe and stone. It's in a porous base, so any water that hits the field goes through the turf and then into the system. Same way, this is what we're designed.
Okay, and do you know the elevation of Veterans Field?
Elevation?
Yeah, the elevation.
47 or 48, I believe.
And on the plans, it has different elevations, I believe, Rob?
Right.
Okay, you have 51 feet. If you look at the 30-yard line, 50 feet at the 35-yard line. You have 48 feet in the northwest corner, and that looks like the lowest point on Veterans Field. It's about 48 feet.
As you look at the, you're standing on Sampson, as you look to the left, where the, I guess where the ramp is and the building and the parking lot, that's your high point, and everything drains, obviously,
to the northwest
side.
And right
from here, there's a pipe underneath the railroad that runs, again, it goes underneath, there's a culvert underneath the railroad tracks, comes out, daylight's on the opposite side. There's a ditch around the back of the industrial building, seal there, that complex. Then it goes back underneath Manuel Street, underneath Route 80, and eventually tributaries into the
Okay, but the land itself, I mean, it looks like the lowest point at Veterans Field, that is field, grass, not woods, is about 48 feet.
elevation 48.
Elevation is 48.
And again, right now, currently, there's a mechanic path, or whatever you want to call it, track path, that exists. We're not contemplating anything. What you're doing is you're building within the current configuration.
Okay, and then if you look on the outside of the field, along the railroad tracks, you have an elevation that looks like 49 feet, and it increases to 52 feet. And then if you go along Sampson Street, you have another elevation that's 53 feet, 52.9 feet. And then if you go along Dewey, you have elevations of 53 feet, 53 feet, 52 feet. And then if you go to Steinway, you have elevations, it looks like as low as 48 feet. So essentially, the lowest point is 48 feet for water to come in, and that would be on the northwest side of the facility. So Steinway, for Veterans Field to flood from a storm, rain, either the water would have to come down heavy and it would have to sit there, or if a river were to rise, it would have to come in from Dewey Avenue, because that would be the lowest point, is 48 feet. It would have to come in from, I mean, Steinway.
Steinway would have to be
Steinway would have to be flooded
probably better.
in order for Veterans Field, the actual field, to flood. I just want to get that point out there. Because people were saying it floods, it floods. It floods because, currently today, it floods because the drainage isn't there for the field. Did you make that statement or no?
I mean, as you go on the western side of the field, that's where the wettest and all the way we were there. I don't know if that's a common scenario where I'm sure the football field. But what if, again, you have a regular grass field. The grass is going to be perfect. You're going to have mud. If it rains, it's going to be muddy until it obviously dries out. And no matter what you put under it, if you put a medium that's very porous, then the difficulty is how do you keep the grass alive? You need a certain amount of moisture, obviously, to keep the grass.
The point I'm trying to make is Veterans Field does not go under water currently due to the Saddle River rising. It has never gone underwater because the water can't get there because around the surroundings is too high.
And again, I think, Ridgewood was brought up. I think there was a member of the audience that talked about the field in Ridgewood. That's adjacent to a stream. And I would imagine it's in a floodway, not a floodplain, which means it's where the velocity of the water is basically moving, and that's probably, I don't know for a fact, but it's probably what's causing their issues on that field, because it's built, it would be like building adjacent to a river. You're not doing that in this case. You're not going to have the rushing waters and the moving waters. You're going to have, obviously, rainwater falling on here, and you need to, obviously, put it on the ground, store it, and then it back.
Harry, are you familiar with the Ridgewood situation?
Yes.
Was your company involved in doing Ridgewood?
We were, yes.
Did you make a recommendation when they came to you and said we want to put a field there?
Well, we certainly weren't trying to steer business away, but there was a big issue in town there where the field was going to be built. So they had a desperate need for synthetic turf fields because of the amount of programs and kids that were playing in them. And the location there, some of the neighbors there that were there, that field is actually located in the floodway, like the engineer said. So the Hoboken Brook actually comes through and turns right at the center between, there's two fields there. There's a high school field that's inside of a track. If you're on Ridgewood Avenue, you can see it right there. And then there's a little bridge that's between the high school field, and on the other side of, there's another big field that's part of the high school property called Stevens Field. Well, the brook actually turns when it hits that under that bridge. It turns right there. So when that Hoboken Brook rises to, in any of these substantial storms, the water is just dramatically flowing over that property, and the fields go underwater 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it was as high as 8 feet at one point on Ridgewood. So the location of that field being in a floodway certainly was not the right place, the best place to put a synthetic turf application. If you really want to see the difference, because I want to make sure that there's an apples to apples comparison. If you go on YouTube and put in the storm at Ridgewood High School, you will see videos of the water raging over the field, and that is nothing like this field or another location that you might have there. So in that field, just somebody brought the question about remediation. So the field did survive these crazy events. The hurricane event, it actually survived it, but it did need some repairs to be done to it. So what happens is after a brook or a river actually flows, there's a lot of silt remaining on the property there. So there was 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of dirt actually sitting on top of the field. The field did filter all of that dirt. So they had to wait until everything dried out and all the water receded, and then clean up all the debris on the field, and then brush all of that silt off of the field. So the field itself has had remediation to it, let's call it. After, it's just been a bad streak of probably 5 or 6 different major storms that we've had where that field has suffered. So they have spent somewhere between, I think, $80,000 and $140,000 3 or 4 times to remediate the field. So they're still there, they're still using the field. I don't expect them to last any less, but that was not the perfect location to build a turf field application.
And yet your company agreed to
Hold on a second. Unless you'll have a chance to talk. In Lodi, since that's right, that's our neighbor. What did Field Turf do their field behind the municipal complex?
We did. So that's another location that Field Turf did construct the field there. And the hurricane that I think was 6 years ago, we had the massive storm there. The water treatment plant actually overflowed. That was a few miles up the road there. So that field actually had some ridges in it because there was a heavy flow of water as well. That location is also one that has water that's flowing actually, that's you know, stream-like more or less. And when they tested the field, there was actual fecal bacteria from the storm, the water treatment plant that was in the field. So the field was contaminated. It was a little different. That field was rebuilt again, and we changed out, the design was changed out from a stone base underneath the field, so it wasn't lifting the field, to an asphalt, a flat asphalt field, and the field was actually glued down to the asphalt. So water actually does not drain vertically through that field. It drains, like we talked about before, as runoff from the field location.
The location of that field, as opposed to Veterans, there's a stream, there's actually the river, right?
Yeah, it's right there. Totally different.
There's been some talk about bacteria and MRSA and just things that people are throwing out there. What is your understanding of the research that's been done with regard to that?
So the MRSA, and forgive me, I'm not here to sound like a salesman to you. It's not about them trying to deliver factual information to you that can be backed up by you doing a little research on your own, and I'll point you to where to go to look up all this information. The company that I work for, just so you know, for those who weren't here the last time I spoke, we have installed about 95% of the turf fields here in New Jersey. So we put in over 500 fields. You're surrounded by a lot of them here. All those other fields that Mr. Brizzi spoke about were fields that Field Turf actually installed, and you're neighbored by, they're neighbors to you here. So when MRSA became a big issue, if you remember a few years ago, brought to light this MRSA bacteria. Actually, one of my kids that plays hockey actually wound up coming down with MRSA from hockey equipment that, you know, so, and it's a scary, scary thing. It was something that really came to light. I mean, I wanted to know about it as much as everybody else. Where do these kids get this stuff? You know, where does it come on? They come in contact with it. So at Penn State University, they have 2 field turf fields, full-size field turf fields up there. But additionally, there's a professor at Penn State called Professor Andrew McNitt is his name. He's an expert in the field of grass, of natural grass application, and now has become an expert in the field of synthetic turf. And they actually have test plots of all these different turf pieces up there, and they test them for all type of UV exposure, and they do testing on the fields for safety, for, you know, release of an athlete's footwear and the cleat out of them. There's a lot of studies, but one of the things that McNitt actually studied right away was MRSA. Where is MRSA in staph infection? Where does it exist at a campus? Is it on the fields? Is it in the weight room? So if you link on Field Turf, if you go to Field Turf's website, there's a link on there. It's called Safety Proven with Science. It's a tremendous piece of information that was compiled. None of it by Field Turf. None of these studies were we even a participant in. These are governmental studies talking about safety of tire rubber and, you know, and lead and all of those things that there might be some questions about. You can go and that brings you to the conclusion of all of these different studies that were done. So the Penn State study is one of them that is in there. And MRSA and staph infection existed all over the campus, in the bathrooms, on the faucets, in the weight rooms, in the hot tubs, everything. But it did not live on the synthetic turf fields outdoors. Okay, indoor applications is a different story because you're not having any water cleanse the field, and you're not having UV. Actually, is what kills off MRSA. So if somebody was to have a cut and had MRSA on a blade of this synthetic grass, okay, or on a blade of natural grass, actually, and somebody else slid on that piece of grass, you know, 10 seconds later, and they had an open cut, they probably would contract MRSA. There's no getting away from that, depending where it is. But in the outdoor fields, it does not exist. It doesn't breed in the outdoor fields. So it was everywhere, but they concluded that it did not exist or breed on the synthetic turf fields. So it's a very interesting study to look at, and it was one formal study that was simple to read and understand where MRSA lives and doesn't live.
What about the antibacterial treatment of the field?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So we do a lot of indoor field installations. You know, these indoor soccer places, and lacrosse has become a big sport now. So I will tell you, every indoor field, we highly recommend that they treat the field regularly to disinfect it, because there is no UV. Once again, there's no water, there's no moisture indoors that's cleaning these fields, and quite frankly, they're disgusting. If you look at the studies that are done on them, there's saliva in them, and the people are bleeding on them and scraping their skin off, and there's no cleaning that goes on. So they should regularly disinfect those fields. In an outdoor field, the porosity of the field is so dramatic. Joe was talking about before, in major storm events, 2 hours later you're out there and it looked like it never rained before. So the field is actually cleaning through the process of every time there's rainfall on the field. But UV does a great job, even in the winter months. Actually, UV kills off most bacteria that's on the field. And when we wouldn't think there's UV, there is actually there. So we do, so I'm sorry I didn't answer the question fully. We do not recommend, okay, nor does the NFL. If you look at they have recommendation, they do not recommend putting any type of disinfectant or chemical on the field. So that's one of the things you're avoiding. You're getting away from, in a natural grass field, there's a lot of pesticides and fertilizers. You're eliminating all of that with the synthetic turf application. So the idea is not to introduce chemicals to these blades of grass, because they're no good for anybody that's on them.
Tony, how do you work with on the fields? When is that done? When you get the plan, how is that done?
How's it incorporated in the field? So that's another great. Joel talked about that they don't even have their facilities guys going out there painting the fields anymore. It's another expense. I don't want to say relatively minor, but it's an expense that adds up over time, that you have to continuously line a grass field with paint, right? Once again, paint's not good for the environment. It's not good for the kids to have on. The paint application goes away because you're going to incorporate the lining for all these different fields out there into the field itself. So about 85% of the field markings are actually made at the plant. So Mr. Casa would present a schematic of exactly what sports are being played, if there's a logo, and the machinery at Field Turf's plant can actually, just for example, just think about carpet being made. This is like a shag carpet. So the machine would stop putting in green plastic, and the computer would automated would tell it there's a 4-inch sideline for a soccer field here. So change the green to white, and it would start tufting in white for 280 feet or whatever the line would be. So the field would come here and get sewn together, and you'd see about 85% of the field marking. It would just be a different color plastic. So your football lines would be white, soccer might be yellow, lacrosse might be light blue for the girls and navy blue for the boys. So you have different colors to differentiate the different sports on there. But once again, you're eliminating the use of paint. The fields are always marked. There's never no one's going to show up at the field and the referees are going to have a problem because the lines are too light on the field. So they're permanent markings on the field that are there for the life of the field.
If we wanted to put in, because currently now, I don't think with the girls softball, nor with Babe Ruth, they have a fence. Right now, I guess for the right field, for Babe Ruth has the high fence, I think it's 260 feet away. And then after that, I guess if it gets over the outfielder's head, it's, you chase it down, it's probably going to be on.
Right.
Can you put temporary fencing or something in there that you can place temporary fencing inside the field without making it a problem for when those are out, let's say baseball is out and football is playing, that you're not catching yourself in there and twisting?
Yeah. So there's a system that Mr. Costa actually is well aware of. And it's a kind of a fencing system, actually. They're putting sleeves in the ground there, and it's just a hole for a fence post that would go in. And then there's fencing that gets rolled out that you actually stick into the ground there. And when the event is over with, or the season is over with, say for softball, the fence is taken out, the posts are taken out, and there's like a bad weight of turf that kind of goes back in that hole. It sits in there, almost perfectly in the hole, and you really don't see it. So yeah, it's something that covers up the hole without being detrimental to safety. And we've done that lots and lots of times. But one of the things, my Fordham University has that. Their softball field goes onto their football field, and they do that all the time.
I believe that the design has no dirt at all. Is that what you're finding people are doing?
Yeah, actually, to be honest, Rutgers University has about 9 field turf fields down there. One of the fields we built about 7 years ago was their baseball field. The baseball field, so we utilize a rust color, or what they call it looks like clay. It really doesn't look like the clay we have in New Jersey. It looks like clay, and in Georgia or Florida. It's like an Indian River clay color, like a rich rust color material. So, and there's a Division I baseball program, and most of them play on field turf and eliminate the need for natural clay. The clay requires maintenance, clay spills all over the place. You can rain events out because you have clay at the mound or at home plate. So more and more, especially in youth-related programs or high school programs, they're actually sliding on field turf. We just did Don Bosco Prep up at Ramswood Baseball Field. If you pass by there right on 17, you'll see the baseball fields have rust color turf in there. And it's very friendly to slide on, and it eliminates any care for the field. So that is what we highly recommend. And then the mounds that get used out on the field are portable mounds that can be dragged out there. They have wheels on them. They get brought out there, and they can be taken out. You know, if in fact there's a different sport being played the next day or 2 hours from that, they can easily be removed from the field. So Rutgers University, I just talked about, one of the areas that we did not put clay was the pitcher's mound because it was a Division I college program, and home plate. And we are right now actually just replacing the clay after 7 years at Rutgers with clay colored field turf because it's such a hassle to maintain the clay, and they're actually converting back to using field turf in their area. So you're talking about, you know, major adult type kids that are sliding on the carpet itself. And that eliminates that maintenance and rain out type of thing when the kids are playing.
Well, about the maintenance, you're not going to have lining of the field and grass cutting and irrigation, you know, with the watering, but there's got to be some maintenance with regard to the field.
Yeah, so the maintenance that's required on the field will come with a piece of equipment that is substantial. It's about a $10,000 unit that's built into the cost of the field. And I was actually one of the few that was involved with designing this piece because we wanted to make sure that the owner could maintain the field if in fact they didn't have funds available to hire an outside party to do so. It's always great if you had the funds to do it, but you don't need it with this piece of equipment on field turf. It was designed for our fields. It's almost 8 feet wide. It's a big mechanical unit. It's a steel frame unit. It has 2 sets of diagonal brushes on it. It has what they call aerators in the middle of it, and then it has these rake tines on the back of it as well. There's 2 settings for it, and that machine is pulled by like a gas-powered golf cart. It could be pulled by a small tractor. It takes about a field the size of the proposed field here. It would take about 45 minutes for one person to groom that field in accordance with our recommendations, and that would be, and it's that simple. It's hooking this machine up, and it's driving the machine north and south and east and west. And what it's doing, the purpose of it, is to continue to make those grass blades stand up as much as they can. Because if they stand up, the kids' cleats actually go in between them, and there's not a lot of stretch or fracture to the fiber, so it doesn't start breaking over time. Because what will happen, if you leave the turf alone, it kind of wants to go like that, and it lays flat. When it lays flat and the kids are playing on it, their cleats are creating a lot of friction to it. And as the sun's drying it out, it starts to break, the fibers start to break over that. So the idea is to keep the fiber standing up, and we've developed a fiber that has a structure to it, that has spines in it, so it does rebound enough. But more importantly, the grooming of the field, the maintenance required, is to keep the field soft. So there's a measure. You don't want to play on a field that's too soft because that's dangerous. That creates it would be like playing on a muddy field, and the kids would suffer a lot of fatigue in their legs. They get tired right away because if you ran on the beach, anybody? You know, last time, it's been a long time since I've run on the beach, but if you run on the beach in the sandy part, you get, you know, just a minute or so, you're wiped out. You're exhausted because you're moving through that loose material. But if you run near the water line, you can run a lot further without becoming fatigued. So the idea is to keep the field at a resilience level, not too soft, not too hard, kind of like the water line. And how you do that is by using this machine. It turns the sand and rubber material over, okay? So it's got that not too soft, not too hard feel to it. And how do you use it? We recommend you use it every 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks during the seasons that the field's being used. So your maintenance really should be limited to 5 or 6 or 8 hours, let's say, maximum over the course of the year. And anybody can do that. You know, you don't really, your facilities people from the town, coaches can do it. It's not that technical of an exercise to perform on the field. Other than that, there really is no other maintenance that's required on the field. So it eliminates, you know, the field eliminates use of paint, fertilizers, chemicals. You know, water is a big deal. Water is very expensive when you're using it to that degree to maintain a grass field out there. So the use of water goes away. So there's a lot of good environmental things with the synthetic turf application as well.
What can you drive or not drive? Would an ambulance be able to drive on?
Oh yeah, so the way these fields are built, the stone base underneath the field, it has a 95% Proctor compaction. It's almost like concrete under the field. So unless you're driving a vehicle really fast and cutting the wheels on it, you're not going to get through the field turf system with sand and rubber in it. You know, I tried to poke a pen through it. I couldn't get a pen through the sand and rubber there. So you'd have to have something really sharp to get through there. So you can plow the field. You can definitely drive an ambulance or park an ambulance on the field during these type of events. If you want to plow the field, we recommend you use a 2-ton truck or less to plow the field actually. So yeah, you can do a lot of things. If you had to go on with something really heavy, I don't know what would be the case of doing it. If you had to bring a fire truck out for some special township event, we would just suggest that you put plywood down, a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, and just make a pathway wherever the vehicle is going on the field, and you can do that as well, without being confident without crushing pipes or anything.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. We talked about elevation and flooding, and Bob, I don't know if this is to you or Perry, but you guys both are pretty convinced that the field will not flood, correct? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would the town get anything like that in writing? Like, I'm just throwing it out there from the taxpayer. Yeah, because if we spend say $1.8 million, $1.9 million, and we have a storm that comes by that just soaked Long Island last week, and the field did flood, what would we get? Would the town have another bill to repair that field? Is where I'm going. I mean, what would it be another expense if the field?
I think what happened in Ridgewood.
I'm not talking Ridgewood. I'm just saying.
No, but I'm saying what happened in Ridgewood. I cannot even imagine happening here because you're not going to have the velocities that took place there because of where it's constructed. If it rains in this location, this field is going to drain. You're higher. If you go in that back area where it's low and wet, it's probably 3 to 4 feet lower. And it's actually, there's a ditch that goes underneath the railroad tracks that's actually burned up, so the water can't get through there. That's how much going to happen. It's going to be much higher. That water would literally have to raise 4 feet, 5 feet for it to get up to this point.
You can't see.
I haven't seen it happen yet. I've asked different DPW guys. To my knowledge, there has not been that type of flooding on this street, cul-de-sac, in the back. Now, granted, if you go further back, yes, but not yet.
All right. Yeah, that was just one question. I have 3 of them actually. You know, we talked about this fencing, and this might be more for you, Perry. The removable, put it in. Now, I could see doing something like that seasonal, but in this application here, where you could have a fence, let's say for Babe Ruth, you could have a softball game the next day. You'd be putting it in and taking it out. It might not be seasonal. It could be every week. It could be twice a week. I mean, would this application hold up, or would those pegs get worn out, or the covers that cover it? You know, how would that hold up under this type of application?
The truth of that issue is you do require a sleeve. So if you want to have different distances, you'd have to have a lot of sleeves in there at the different radius that you were doing for the different sport. But I wouldn't have any reservation about moving. It's very simple. The putting the post in and having the wrap go around the post is very simple. It's something that would probably take 20 minutes prior to a game to move. However, it's not perfect. You know, you're going to have a sleeve in the ground, and you have this weight put on it that plugs the sleeve, per se. It will require very little maintenance, I think, around the sleeve, because you have the sand and rubber granules that are around there. You know, you want to kind of keep up on them probably once a year and go out and just, either vacuum them out, put new granules around, do a little something so it stays nice and neat in those sections.
All right. You're a professional on this, and I'm just throwing these questions out there, but so what do you think with the fencing? Would it actually hold up the same as doing it seasonal, or because we could be doing it twice a week?
Oh, I don't know why it wouldn't hold, absolutely.
Okay.
Or your other option is there are above ground, obviously, temporary, and they've improved them a lot from years ago when I was coaching my kids and whatnot. They're pretty good. They're very stable if you don't want to, get into the turf.
All right. The only other question I have, does it burn? I mean, I hear pros and cons of this or that.
You remember, they remember somebody brought the turf, was trying to light it on fire and whatnot. So here's the answer to that. The fiber itself is polyethylene, it's plastic, okay? It's treated dramatically with fire protectant when it's made as part of the chemical process. So you would need an accelerant to start. You couldn't just put a match to it and expect the field's gonna flash, okay? But if someone came out there and poured, a pint of gasoline in a little circle and threw a match on it, remember, this is sand and rubber that's in it, okay? So it would ignite. You'd get a flame in that little circle, but what would put the flame out, as soon as that fiber melted down to the sand and rubber, which is a ½ an inch down, and it would go out automatically. So the field turf field, at least, with its composition of sand and rubber in it, passes every, there's a radiant flux test that they close. We deal with that because the turf goes in a lot of armories throughout the country where there's munitions stored, so you have to pass these strict tests. So that's one of the things that you'd want to, a rubber infill field is a little bit of a different scenario because it's not the sand as an extinguishing agent. So, but somebody may be able to, with an accelerant, have a little bigger flame spread, but never in either case, I don't think the field would not flash.
Basically, it's not flammable.
It's flat. Like I said, the fiber would actually ignite with an accelerant,
right,
but it would be extinguished.
But I'm just talking without an accelerant. Someone flicked a cigarette. There's no way it's not.
Exactly. And then the repair is very simple, actually. You now have a burn. You have burn. The top of the grass fiber is burned in this little spot. We would have to come in. It would take about a ½ an hour to repair it. Just cut out that section, suck the sand and rubber out, and then put in, piece in and glue in a new piece, and then put new sand and rubber. So it's not. And I have to tell you, I don't even know that I know in 20 years in this business of ever hearing of one of these fields ever going on fire. And we've built them in some really rough neighborhoods in Harlem and places where they're just wide open without fencing. So you can imagine there's fires being built on them in the wintertime. So I don't think that should be a concern.
You talked about fire, and I know the town, I think in September, we're probably going to be passing a resolution approving a program where we would be part of this bigger program, which is anti-smoking in public spaces. And as part of that, they would give us free no smoking in public signs that we would post up. It's obvious that you don't want smoking. I was just at Woodbridge today just to look at their field. I've gone to a bunch of fields. And they have the no smoking sign. What else would you suggest that we would prohibit? Remember, we're going to have fans there, we're going to have kids there. We expect to have a separate eating area. I think part of the design is that next to the snack, it would be a kind of a pavilion with some pavers there with some tables and chairs. So we want to keep people there to eat. But what other kind of signs are we going to have, or what are we going to prohibit? Gum chewing, what's bad for the spectator?
Yeah, so what we do with field turf with our customers is we actually create whatever you need, depending on the size of the facility. We're probably for that facility, maybe make 6 signs up, and we would have your Saddlebrook logo in the sign, and it would be the rules of the field, actually. And they're metal signs, and you put them on your fences there. So some of the things you don't want, it's not. Listen, if somebody comes on there with a sandwich or something, they're not going to create it. You don't want to. You certainly don't want to say, hey, food is totally allowed on the field from the consent, because just think about it, French fries or hot dogs being smashed in the field, you can get mold that could grow in the field. You really don't want food items to be out there like that on a regular basis, but Gatorade is fine, all of those things are fine, they'll wash through, even soda will wash through, even though it's very corrosive, let's say. But, seeds, like sunflower seeds, and you probably want to, even though the kids do that, they chew the seeds on the sideline, but you don't want birds coming looking for things to eat on the field. So anything organic, you want to try to keep out of the field. But there's really not, metal cleats, probably want to prohibit metal cleats. You can use them on field turf, but they're very abrasive. They're aggressive to the fire. Most facility owners will say, ban metal cleats. You can't use them anyway in most of the sports anyway. So things like that. But we have a whole list of things on the sign that'll tell you what's recommended, what's not permitted on the field.
I just thought of something. When we have, for football, we have the goalposts.
Yeah.
And they would be removable because in our case, the goalposts are on the first base side for both softball and baseball, because they're on opposite ends of the field. Do you do that same kind of wig deal with that?
There's a box that gets created, the sleeve for the goalpost, the removable goalpost, and that's very common because most fields, I wanted to tell you before, but I didn't want to interrupt. Most fields that are built in northern New Jersey, where it's so populated and everybody's landlocked, they're in almost all instances. East Rutherford happens to be very fortunate that they have a little more land there, and they can. But they have a lot of kids too that play, so they're branching out. But almost every field is a multi-sport field, even at the private high school levels. They're playing lacrosse, football, soccer on top of it, softball in the corners. Every field, I'd say 99% of the fields that we build in New Jersey here are multi-sport fields, and they're lined with 4 or 5 sports on it. So these fields are meant to be used. That's the purpose of them. So yeah, everything with the exception, that's a box, actually a sleeve, and we would make the cover of the box is a heavy-duty PVC plastic. We would cover that box when we did the turf installation with turf, and that would go right back in as opposed to remove. But then all your other equipment like soccer, corner flags, and those kind of, right now they stick in the ground, so everything's weighted now. Every one of those flags, the corner kick flags, and they're all weighted, so there's no more, you're not puncturing the turf anymore. They're just sitting on top of the field.
And do you have problems, or have you had complaints? Because here we're looking at baseball, softball, lacrosse, soccer, and football potentially to use this field. Have you had any problems with people saying the lining is confusing? Because remember, you're lining this one time, and that's it. And you're going to have different, like you said, different colors. Has that caused confusion in the players? Or has that been any problem?
I can confidently answer you this way. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I manage the Northeast for the company here, so we have a lot of field applications in the North. I have never, ever once heard of a student athlete or a recreational player or a player of any type on a field stating that they're having issues with confusing the line markings for their sport. It's folks like us that would sit up in the top row of the bleachers and sit there and go, oh my God, this is insane, look at this field. There's all these markings on it. So it's common practice that the markings are on there. Most high schools have 5 sports laid out, plus a logo, plus end zone letters. There's a dramatic amount of lines that are, so to the lay person looking at it, it looks ridiculous to us, like how can you figure it? But if you're a soccer player, you absolutely know where your boundaries are in soccer. And furthermore, the elementary speaking, the color is different anyway. But a soccer player knows the widest field is the soccer line in a field. A lacrosse player will know where their boundaries are. Football is pretty obvious. It's right out there. So I've never heard of a player or have a coach or an administrator tell us that the kids are having trouble on these fields. It's always the parents or somebody else, an administrator that's in the bleachers saying, this looks crazy, the field. So, and then granted, it does when you're looking at a drawing, you're looking from above, but it's never an issue with the kids playing on the field.
I went also to Beckman. I was able to get access to the field. Today, because the kids were playing soccer, there was soccer practice, so you couldn't get on. But I went there, and it seemed like it was like wired. It looks pretty. It looks beautiful. But it seemed like it was wiry. And I think what you brought to us was like something that was like solid. Was it like sticking up?
Yeah.
Theirs is different. What's the difference between what they got and what you propose?
Yeah, so at the time, Joe, they received a state-of-the-art synthetic turf field. That was the fiber that was most prevalent at that time. That's what our company used for the long, and we still use that particular fiber in heavy use areas, actually, believe it, because it actually holds up really well to a lot. So if you have like in your base pass or some of the air, we actually still use that part because it is durable. And I mean, that's so we use the term wire. It's not wire, it's a plastic fiber, but it's a durable plastic fiber. So since then, 10 years ago, there's been a lot of evolution to the fiber itself. So Field Turf now, about maybe 6 years ago, came out with a structured fiber. So the fiber that's there, and at a lot of other locations here in New Jersey, hundreds of the ones that we have built, is a fiber that's a flat tape. It's a flat fiber. There's nothing to it, it's just flat. Okay, and that's the fiber that doesn't have a lot of ability to stand up, and it kind of wants to do that. There's a good thing to that too. It traps the sand or the sand and rubber, or just the rubber inside of the thing, so you don't have it flying all over the place too. So, but now there's fiber that's created, like Field Turf has a fiber called Revolution. And Revolution is a fiber that instead of just a spine, like a natural grass spine, it's like a ridged fiber. It's almost like it has 8 spines in it in every blade of grass. And what that spine does, it allows if you step on the fiber and you mat it down, it has the ability to rebound like that. It's never going to stand straight up when it's new, it does, if you look at it in the bottom, but it kind of stands like that, okay, more so than doing that. So it has more of a grass-like appearance for a longer period of time. So East Rutherford will realize that that's the latest and greatest fiber. When they replace the field, most likely they'll go to a fiber that has some structure to it, but it wasn't available 9 or 10 years ago or 8 years ago. So it's something relatively new. So it's been the fiber itself, so the appearance of the field has been improved dramatically over the long term. The field will stay more grass-like looking for a longer period of time, but never forever. Eventually it loses, the sun wears it out to the point where it goes like that.
Just a quick point. We have a recreation field that has a small girls softball, and then the older girls plus the high school plays on. Neither one of them has fences, and the high school plays there. And then our high school field, again, the technology now, we didn't have that sleeving for the fence, so we were using this fence that you would put sandbags. So the high school baseball, they don't even have fencing. So it's about, I guess, shot in the gap is the home run, but neither one of those fields, either one of them play with fences. So it's not necessarily, I don't think it's required, is it?
It's not required, no.
And you just bring up one more question that just came up is, what's the lifespan of this field that this town will be purchasing? What is the lifespan on it?
So let me, Councilman, let me share with you a little bit of my experience as well. I'm not going to talk at a school here, but let's say you have some parochial schools or private schools where they play at a real high level and they say, well, we want the field to be really fast. We want this field to be as fast, so our kid can gain, 180 yards a game instead of 140 yards if it was sloppier to play. So they the football program might like to keep the field firmer, okay? And that will make the athletes like anything else. If you run on a firm surface, you're going to run faster on something that's harder than you would if something was more resilient, the surface. So some fields are purposely not groomed the way we recommend that they groom the field, and that's not good for the life of the field. Okay, so what we ask you to do should be done at a minimum in grooming the field. I lost track of what your question was.
The lifespan of the field.
Okay, so if in fact you're not grooming the field and aerating it and keeping those fibers fresh and to the point where we want them to be, the field's not going to last you as long as somebody else that was doing the regular grooming of the field. So if we just replaced the field at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, it was a field that they use as their game field. They get 17 years out of it. And when I tell you the field it's a smaller field, it's in the heart of Newark. They have nowhere else to go. They're on the field day and night at that school. It was shot in probably I want to say should have been replaced in about 14 years or so, but they did stretch it because they didn't have the funds available. So there are fields that we have, and there's many others that have lasted 14 or 15 years. They don't look as good when they get older, but they're certainly just as safe as they were when they were, because the material was staying. But the average life expectancy of a field like that's used dramatically, I want to say that's used day and night, especially the fact that you have lights there, it's a big advantage. If you want to use the turf, it's fine. You should expect to get a very minimum of 10 years out of the field. And I would say that I would estimate that the fiber that's out there, you will get probably at least 12 years out of that field.
And someone from the audience at the last meeting came up and talked about injuries. And this is going to be a flat surface. There's not going to be any bumps or channels.
Right.
Do you know of any studies that talk about, I guess it would be generally knees and ankles,
yes,
in terms of injuries with turf versus natural grass or seed or sod?
I'm going to give you the short answer. So once again, if anybody's interested in data on injury, if you link over to Field Turf's website, you'll find it very interesting that Field Turf's fields have been the subject of multiple user safety studies that have been done on the fields. And when I say that, what do you mean? What do I mean by that? I mean, for example, one test that was done, it was a 5-year-long study by an orthopedic medicine group They took 5 field turf fields in the state of Texas, okay, where you don't have freezing conditions, you have pretty good weather or hot weather most of the year. Took 5 field turf fields, high school fields, and took 5 natural grass high school fields in a similar vicinity there, and they studied them. The trainers from the schools actually had to report through computer software every injury that ever took place on the field. So if you broke your pinky, or you had an abrasion, or you had a concussion, or you had an ACL injury, all of those injuries were recorded for 5 years long. That study concluded that in, I want to say maybe one category, minor category, but in almost every category of injury, field turf field was safer than that of very nicely manicured natural grass fields. Okay, there have been about 5 others, and that study is published in the New England Journal of Sports Medicine. So these are not studies that were done to just get out there for us to sell fields. They're actually published studies in medical journals out there. There's, I think, been 4 other ones since then. There's been one at the college level that's been done, but you'll see each and every one of them on the website there, and you will feel very confident that the injuries, concussion type of injuries, have gone down dramatically with our field. ACL injuries, MCL injuries. You can suffer an ACL injury, which is a tear of your knee, typically a career-ending injury, is where the athlete's foot plants, whether it be in natural grass or turf or what. The mind says we're cutting this way, the body listens to it, and the foot momentarily gets caught in there. You can either tear your ankle or you can tear your knee, and those are typically career-ending injuries. It happens on natural grass if you plant the wrong way. Just happen to be unfortunate. It happens on field turf, okay? But the incidence of those kind of injuries have been reduced on field turf because of the type of infill that's used in the field. It instantaneously releases your foot. And field turf has, and I'm not here to sell or advertise the company, but there's 40 or so different patents on field turf's technology. And field turf was developed with orthopedic medicine professionals that actually, they developed our product to make sure that it was safer than natural grass. So there's a lot of little things about field turf that make it a lot safer than natural grass applications.
Any questions from the council?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. First, I'm going to ask if there are any football commissioners or coaches that would like to address Perry or address the council with regard to your particular sport. Any commissioners or coaches?
Andy, I just stand up is good?
Yeah, I think so. Why don't you actually, since, why don't you come up here? Rich, it's probably better for you to come up here. Stand where Joel was.
I'm a podium guy, so. No, I'd like to thank the previous administration, Lou, for giving us Veterans Field #1, because we do ball at home. We definitely like to have our own field away from the high school. I've been involved in football for 18 years.
Just for everyone, Rich McKay, football commissioner.
Yes. I've been involved for 18 years. My youngest guy is in high school now, so I do not have any kids that are in recreation anymore. So my opinion is solely recreation. It's not money. It's my opinion. If we could get our kids a turf field on our home field, I am totally for it. I definitely have some concerns. I would love to have a turf field at the high school. In fact, my son would benefit from it, but I just don't see where, as a rec program, we're going to get the use out of it as if we would have our own field. Just my opinion. I know you mentioned fences. The league does have rules. I need to have a minimum of 15 feet outside of the playing area of the field. I know soccer's a little bit wider. I don't know if these fences, it takes me on a Saturday morning 3 or 4 hours sometimes to set up, and Councilman Camilleri, he's been out there helping me. It takes a long time to set those fences up and get that rope out there. Is this something I'm going to have to do, 4 times a year at a home game, and possibly because I saw the fences in the brochure there. They're definitely, you'd have to get out there with a flatbed, drag them out there and put them. Is it something I would have to do, like, for every home game, or would they go up for football and soccer, and they're wide enough for soccer.
I don't think we're talking about portable fencing for anything other than baseball or softball.
Right, but the issue
No, you
here
have-
is for our Meadowlands Football League, it's a league rule that we have to have a safety fencing up from the sidelines of the football field.
Rob, you have that on the plan.
That's on that.
It's on the plan.
Yeah, I was asking them before because I couldn't really read the plans, you know, and get in line, but so there was something around there. But like I said, is that something I'm going to have to do every? That takes a lot of time. You know, if it goes up for football and soccer and stays up for the season, it's perfect then.
Well, who does it now, Rich? I don't think it's going to be any different than what you do now, but I'm sure that we can.
As long as I don't have to do it every game.
Yeah, I
if we
mean,
do it in the
with the-
beginning, I have no problem doing it and setting it up. Plus,
Again-
the soccer can get together and do it.
I'm not sure.
It's just very
We
time
got-
consuming. And
We have some soccer people here, and I'm not 100% sure of the dimensions of soccer. And it's obviously wider than a
Right.
regulation football field, and certainly we don't want the soccer guys to be running into the fence because it's too close. So if it's soccer, probably have to be taken down. Football for your games would be on Saturdays. I think you only play on Saturdays. So I would think that based on the fact that we're not doing any lining of the fields, which takes one person, I believe, an entire day to line the fields, that you would get some assistance from the town.
Okay. Because it probably, you know, like I said, it takes me a few hours to do it, but I think that new way is definitely going to take like I say, you're going to have to get on there with a little tractor and a flatbed, and because they look like some pretty big sized pieces.
No, I don't believe they are.
That's for the baseball.
Oh, they're different,
If the
yeah.
council decides to put a fence in for baseball.
Well, for football, we would have to.
Same thing you have now, just the fencing that you have now. with
We don't have
baseball.
no fencing, we use a rope.
We'd be using basically fencing to corral the fans for the field.
Okay. It's something that would get up there
It
a week,
wouldn't-
and it
it
wouldn't
wouldn't
put a
be-
lot more time on us, on the
When you
volunteer
say
side.
when you say fencing, I believe that all is it's something that's going to stick in there, and then you're going to have you're going to be roped off.
So it'll be basically what I do now.
What you do now,
Okay.
except you'll have what we plan on is having the sleeves in there to
Right,
pop
that's
them
what
in.
I have in there now.
Yeah.
My only other concern is basically really, the most complaints I get at the home games are for the bathrooms. Just a couple of porta johns that are out there is always an issue. I don't get many complaints about the parking. We use the business down the street. They're very, you know, they help us out when we utilize, I think it's Norison is the business. But the bathrooms, I know previously, you know, they said there was other plans in place to upgrade here and there and bathrooms and all. And, you know, for whatever reasons, you know, elections come and go and people come and go. I would just want to make sure that each phase is followed through. You know, so not just when the field's done and then the bathroom and the concession stand never gets done. We just redid our trailer over there that we removed all our equipment from the high school field over. And I know there's a plan in place because obviously that trailer is going to have to go. My other concern is storage. I need on-site storage for all the equipment. I can't be set far away. If I have helmets that break, I need to get into somewhere that we can sit down and get that stuff repaired, you know, pretty quickly. And mouthpieces, just stuff you need daily, you know, at practice, on-site. So that would be my only concern, and I guess there is a plan in place for storage.
Rich, my original, and I'm just talking personally, I would have liked to have done everything at the same time, but we didn't get cost estimates, so we can't do that. So and people may laugh and say, you know, and I've ridiculed online and for certain people that I'm very concerned about that $400,000, and damn well, I'm damn right I'm concerned with $400,000. I don't want to lose $400,000, and to be honest with you, I don't know that this would have. It kind of lit a fire under us when the county came back and they actually accepted our grant application for $400,000, because that's pretty much 25% of the cost of doing this. And really, the $400,000 is pretty much the price of turf. So it's almost as if we're getting the turf for free and we're making improvements to the field. And again, I don't want to disparage Mr. Arminio or anybody previously. They did what they had to do for the field. But we can make it better, because it does have drainage issues and it does have grade issues. We can fix that, and I think it needs to be fixed. I don't think there's any doubt that anyone who's played on there, my son played on there for years, many people in the audience, their kids played there and continue to play there. It has poor drainage and it's sloped. I mean, if you look at it from the goalpost by the railroad, you can see that it's not an even field. Fix it. Do it the right way. I would have liked to have done everything, but and other people said phase 2, phase 3. You know what? If we consider this phase 1 because we have the price and we're getting the money and we need to do something before December, make it the field. The second thing that I think we all did, and I was out there with all the council people who were out there, fix up, like Mr. Arminio said, fix up that garage. I mean, that was the plan years and years ago. Right. I don't see why that should cost that much money. I don't think it will cost that much money. You have to bring it up to code, certainly, but it does have a heating system. It does have physical plant in there. It also has facilities for bathrooms. Now they're disgusting. You can't stay there. But if we make handicapped accessible bathrooms, and as I've discussed with you, we can do it in such a way that in the wintertime when recreation or wrestling or anybody else who's using the interior can access it from the inside, so they don't have to go to the building, the house, to go to the bathroom. During football season or other times when the garage is closed, you can access it from outside, and you can just deadbolt it from the inside, so they can't get in and potentially cause any damage or steal anything from the inside of our equipment, of our facility. With that, and I talked to you about your storage, what I see, what I can envision, and again, I don't think it's an extraordinarily large cost, but get rid of the trailers that are there, put in additional parking where the trailers are currently, not where your trailer is, which is right next to the garage, but the other trailers. We've already moved out the water department from there, and now the water department worker is in town hall. There's no one actively at that trailer, and potentially we can move that someplace else. So if we get rid of that and get rid of some of the other trailers, now you've got that much more parking there. I think it estimates maybe 15 or 20 additional spaces. Next to the garage where your trailer currently is, you've raised it up, or the town raised it up so you can have your trailer there. Raise it up bigger. Raise it up going behind the batting cage for Babe Ruth, and put in like a corrugated steel, like a Lackland storage, and Joe and I talked about that. If you have a 20 by 40 building there, everybody would be able to have access to their equipment. We have to determine who needs what. Now football may have, and I know you, because you have shoulder pads, knee pads, all that kind of stuff. You've got a lot of equipment. There may be, lacrosse may not need that much. I don't know. I'm not a lacrosse guy. I don't know if they have the same kind of equipment needs and storage needs. Softball, I believe, already has their storage in the stack stand shed, so I don't think they would need any. But certainly, if we can provide all the teams that use that field with a storage facility right there, right now, when I went to the field the other day and we wanted to see the inside of the trailer, getting access to that trailer, you have to admit, it's tough. You've got these steel bars and you're opening it and closing it. It's tough to get in there. You'd have a roll-up door with a lock on it. You'd get the key, and when you guys got to go in, or you give it to your coaches, and you'd have a limited number of people having access to that. So, let's say it's phase 2 would be, what we would get would be a usable indoor space. And I'm a wrestling guy and a football guy because that's what my son did. So I know the most about those sports. You throw mats down there and you have it for a couple of months. I mean, wrestling season is not that long of a season. Mr. Arminio talked about the cheerleaders. I think we've already talked to them. They need an amazing amount of space in order to do their tumbling runs and being thrown in the air. And I don't see that. But again, what they told us the other night at the meeting was they needed 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 months of the year. it's not really conducive to sharing a space. So let's say wrestling would have it for a couple of months, but for the summertime, you roll up your mats. You could, during football season, the coaches could go in there and watch film, watch video. We could do that. You'd have your bathroom issue solved. You'd have your parking issue helped. Not going to solve it unless you've got a multi-story garage, which isn't going to happen. So don't take this that I'm saying you need a multi-story garage. Plant arborvitaes. Some citizen came in and said, well, no one likes to have headlights shown at them. So you put a blackout fence and you put some arborvitaes. These things are doable. The good thing about that is that doing the field does not affect this second part. We just don't have the prices on it. And obviously, if it's too ridiculously expensive, we'd have to chop down a bit. We don't know. But at that point, you'd have your bathrooms, you'd have your extra parking, you'd have your on-site storage facility, and as opposed to a 20-year-old rusty trailer, you're going to have a new facility like the Lackland Storage would have. So that's, I think, when we talk about master plans, I think that would be a reasonable master plan, and maybe, as Mr. Camilleri said, in the future, see what you want to do with that building, the house that's there. Is it serving its purpose, or is it not serving its purpose? Can you knock it down and do something else with it? Can you renovate it? Something. Because right now, like Joe said, he's been in there, it's not really serving the purpose that we expected it to serve in the beginning.
Like I said, my concern was that the phases get done. I definitely want to see the kids get the turf field there, as long as we finish the plan, not just do it and end it. And I think that those bathrooms, honestly, it should be done sooner than later if we could figure that in, because that is probably one of the more, I guess, I'm not going to say embarrassing things that I have to deal with at a home game. But when there's certain people that come up to me and they're complaining about the facilities, and I don't have a whole lot that I can say.
We will be looking at cost estimates for that, and certainly the bathrooms. We have water and we have sewer there. Right? It's not rocket science to.
That's what I'm saying. Sooner than later, and then I guess the other plans. But that's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
Andrew, if I could just add one thing on the bathrooms.
Yes.
Next year, community development, I would suggest whoever is sitting up here, Veterans Field is an area that qualifies for community development. We don't have many areas in town that do. I would suggest you put in for bathrooms for Veterans Field through community development. We're going to get something out of it, and every little bit helps.
Sure. Any other commissioners or coaches? State your name and your sport.
Sure. Vincent Cirillo. I'm a town resident of Saddlebrook for 10 years, and I'm the current Boys Lacrosse Commissioner. And first of all, I want to thank the Mayor and Council, all the other people involved in recreation. The 2 years I've been doing this, everyone in every way helps things work out and making our season successful, a newer sport in town. And I wanted to give my approval, but my support of the field project, and to give some of the challenges we face in boys lacrosse in trying to run a program, not just with veterans fields, but fields in general. Saddlebrook's a small town in this total area, limited in fields, and we do the best we can between sports of sharing fields. Our main lacrosse field is Franklin, which has a big hump and a hill, and almost every town, North Bergen County and anywhere else in Morris County, will not play us on that field. So veterans becomes the offset for us to look for our home games. Safety is the biggest issue because of the hump and kids running up and down the hill in the middle of the game. Some of the challenges with Veterans Field, as Rich mentioned, is the facilities with bathrooms. A very big challenge, and we faced in different things. Drainage is a problem. It's a problem where just last Thursday I was out there helping out football, and that downpour, puddles are just everywhere. It's not one spot, it's multiple spots. It's not where there's a pitch, it could be where the grass didn't grow in. It's various things. That field also is a challenge at Veterans for lining it for multiple sports. If I have a lacrosse game, I got to get there 3 hours early, leave work early to make sure I have to put something across where the baseball line is, put up markers, put up cones, get garbage cans if I can't find cones, so we know the boundaries, because we're trying to move that within a boys game, a girls game, soccer, softball and baseball. The geese is still an issue in the spring. May not be in the winter, but in the fall, but in the spring it's an issue. And some of the other towns as well would say, you know, if it's going to rain the day of, they'll just pre-cancel. They'll say, look, do you want to cancel now because we know the way that field trains. So I think we do a nice job as a town in trying to showcase our youth and trying to give them an opportunity to do certain things and to participate. But I have a 10-year-old boy, and I can tell you, he's like, Dad, you know, could we play all the games away? They have turf here, they have turf there, you know. It becomes a participation thing. Not that it should be, but it becomes a way of, you know, they expect new uniforms now, you know, every so many years. And from a turf standpoint, you know, it was a long time ago a safety issue, and I can tell you now it's not. I got hurt playing on grass, blew my knee out, not playing on turf. And now the turf, when you look at it from the way he was mentioning it's built, it is safer because you just slip before something damages your body or something like that. And concussions, I really can't comment on that, but I'm for the turf field, and I thank everyone for listening.
Are you a commissioner, sir?
What?
We're limiting it right now to commissioners and coaches. Any other commissioners and coaches?
I just had one other thing. So, some of the other districts that have the turf fields have been renting it out to camps and taking that money into improvement into the rec departments. So they'll come and they'll find, okay, lacrosse company wants to rent it out for 2 weeks. They're going to pay a couple $1,000s to rent that field out for 2 weeks to run their camp. So in the other improvements, there is sometimes a revenue back that can be utilized for the bathrooms or other things we're looking at.
Any other coaches, commissioners? Okay, Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, Joe Ribaro, 324 Mayo Street.
Yeah, motion to open to the general public.
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is now open to the public. Mr. Rivera.
I've lived in town since 1956. I was involved in recreation in the 60s. We were the ones instrumental that year to getting the field behind Coolidge. We got that property permission to put a ball field there. And we first started there with the girls softball. They were there first. And then as soon as it was more like a Republican Democratic, I don't know what you would call it. It was like a little competition that you know, but there was athletic directors. They used to point one from the Republican club and one from the Democratic club. I was an athletic director for the Republican club. But we built that, but as soon as the Republicans lost, they lost the field of girls. They went to the Babe Ruth League. They stopped playing there. And we had that built with the people from the DPW. They worked on that when we were doing the sewers. They got a lot of the sand and everything from the streets, and they built that infield and everything. Now there's a perfect place, maybe, if it's got enough room for a football field. I don't know if it's 300 feet, 100 yards, with a little extra, I guess, for the field goal. Nobody ever thought about that. Now they didn't think we were going to get the permission from the county at that time, but we did. Now you also have the Paley Park. That could be a county-run field for the whole, maybe part of the county, and put a football field there. That's where you could really do something for the town and for the towns around here. Nobody's ever talked about those two places. As far as the field where we have now, there's a little problem there. Did you ever get site plan approval before? I'll answer that question, no. And that town, a town could put a field or anything almost anywhere in town, but you have to come before the planning board for site plan approval, which nobody ever did. They should have came when they first built that field, but they didn't come. And you're talking about now putting stands there, refreshment stands, toilets, so it's more than a football field. And it's in the ordinance where they should come before for site plan approval, and you never did. Am I right, Bob?
Yeah, I don't know if they
never did.
But again, I don't think that's what we're discussing. Tonight, I think we're just discussing the actual field, the physical field, and then the people that run the recreation program to look at this to see.
Yeah, but I think what I see, what I see here tonight is a promotion for this here project.
But that's okay.
Well,
Promotions is good.
you got promotion, but you got a lot of people here want to speak.
If it goes down, council decides to vote this forward, then
Well, it isn't
they
only
might
the
have to
council.
make a
It-
recommendation. The planning board
Excuse
might
me,
have to
Bob,
make a
but it's not only the
recommendation.
council. If they have to go to the planning board,
It would just be for a recommendation.
it's not, well, a recommendation, but they have to go through a site plan.
It's only for a recommendation because it's a capital project. The planning board would basically have absolutely no jurisdiction.
But they put a,
Other than recommending that
wait a while, they put a gazebo on, by the library, and they came to the planning board for approval.
recommendation.
Well, recommendations, they still gotta go by what we
The
say.
town itself, there's no jurisdiction by the planning board for approval or denial. Couldn't deny it.
Then why did they come for the police station? Why did they come for the expansion?
Because it's a capital improvement.
So they came before the planning board.
Under the municipal land use law, they have to.
So,
But it's not binding, it's only a it's not like a private citizen that has.
we know it's not binding because they're permitted in the whole town. They could do anything in the town, but they have to come before the board, like these people are interested in the SIP project at Veterans Field. They're concerned about the parking. They're concerned about the noise effect over there. They're concerned about the lighting. And you told me that they shouldn't be here talking about that?
Again, the lighting is the lighting. The lighting is not changing. The size of the field is there. The only difference is the drainage improvements, fencing improvements, and turf.
Are you talking as an attorney, or just as?
I'm not an attorney.
All right, so you're saying something here that you're not an attorney.
I never said I was an attorney.
Well, you're saying that they don't have to come before the board. We're only gonna-
That's not what I said. What I said was, they have to go before the planning board for a recommendation.
Well, everybody comes for recommendations.
No. They don't need an approval from the planning board.
So why bother to come then?
Because technically, if it's a capital improvement, they have to make a cursory review of the plan.
Well, we had the police station. We went over everything with them. We had the school.
Again, but even
We
if
had-
you didn't like it, you couldn't deny it.
But
You
so
might not
low,
like it.
we had our input in it.
You put your input, but quite frankly, your input doesn't mean a lot because it's only a recommendation. The governing body can do it.
They can do what they want, but I say then disband, as far as that concerns, then don't put it in our ordinance that these fields should
It's
be
actually-
before the board.
The ordinance mimics the municipal land use law.
Well,
It's at a higher authority.
Okay. Now, as far as the field, between grass and the turf, now, how's the insurance on that? Now, people get hurt, he says that they're equal. Well, here's what the National Football Association says. They dream of the day when all the fields are grass. That's the National Football Association says. That's their argument. They don't like the injuries that are being occurred in professional football. And what are we worried about? A guy gets hurt, forget about the insurance. I don't even know if the insurance is more on a turf field than a grass field, is it? Does anybody know?
Insurance for the town is covered whether you have anything there.
It's no more on that field.
If you have another
They don't
field,
increase it.
Pop anything.
Well-
We have one policy that covers all of our properties.
Well, don't you think the injury is more important than the money? Somebody gets hurt and gets a concussion on one of those turf fields, which I think is easier.
Unfortunately, the studies are, from your point, is that the studies are showing just the opposite.
I don't believe
I don't
that.
know what a National Football Association is, but National Football League, let me just ask.
Actually, what John Clayton says, oops. What John Clayton says from ESPN about that.
Who?
John Clayton,
He's the NFL reporter?
he's the senior writer for the ESPN, sports writer. This is what he says about that. Let me put my glasses on. He's the conclusion. Grass fields properly maintained is better over field turf. Now, there's 11, I think I said that before, there's 11 turf fields in the National Football League, according to him, and 21 grass. I always thought it was the opposite. So I don't know how all these are going to vote. What do you think about it? It looks like he's all in favor of it.
Well, I can tell you this, at every NFL stadium, I would assume that there's about 100 people that can maintain that grass field, and we have one. So that might be the difference.
Well,
I mean, if you have 100 people, I'll take 10 yards and you take 10 yards.
Well,
and,
if the
and
safety
you can
factor-
you can have a pristine environment, but certainly we don't have that. And you can see how, if you go look at the field, what a football, and remember, that football field, the Giants and the Jets, they don't even practice on that field. They use it 1 day a week for 4 hours. And they have people that are there full-time, hundreds of people that their job is to maintain that facility. This is a property that is used by 5 different teams, maybe 6-7 days a week. During the summer, there's not a lot of activity there. But for the most part, during the fall and the spring, there are 5 teams that are actively using this. And you can see, if you go on the field, it's half grass, half dirt. The grass does not stand up. That's just, again, my opinion. That's what I
I've
saw
watched
when I went
football
there.
games since the late 30s and 40s. That's high school games. And they always played on grass. And I'll tell you something, there wasn't as many injuries like there are today on these here synthetic fields. And I'll close with that.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other member of the public?
Sure, we're just standing in a line.
Oh, there's a line? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we're just kind of scoping a little line so we can just keep going. Hi, Nancy Murray, Pine Ave. I wish Mr. Brizzi was here because I am an East Rutherford native. Lived a block away from Riggins Field when it was called Riggins Field. And yeah, the roads flooded. I don't ever recall through high school or anything the field flooding. Yeah, it got wet. Field was never underwater. The roads around it were underwater. And the roads were repaired by them digging out the culverts on each side in 17 and everything else. So I haven't seen floods since they've done that work, And I'm there all the time. And when we were little, we pushed cars out of those waters. So I understand what, the flooding issue, but I don't ever recall the field flooding. So I just wanted to say that much as far as that goes. I don't have the answer, but I do have an opinion. I don't know if you should move forward without a complete master plan. I kind of agree with Mr. Camilleri. There should be a plan of everything you want to do for the field, and then it should be prioritized. I said, what should be done first? Second, third, fourth, fifth. And if you have that plan, and Joe's been calling it a master plan, and it could very well just be a list of wants and needs, and then you could put them as prioritizing. I think that's the way even normal businesses follow through and project manage things, is that they have a list of what has to be done, what needs to be done, and what's wanted to be done. But you prioritize your needs, you get your costs in, and you say, okay, I have this much money to spend. I got to do number 1, but I have enough money for 2 and 3, so how can we, switch this around so 1 can be a little lower priority than 2 and 3? I think you really need to look at what you're doing first. Like I said, I have no kids that are playing on the field anymore. They've played on them. The field was always wet. You could, on a dry day, you could stand there with work boots on and your feet were soaking wet through your shoes. But me, I don't have the answer. I wish years ago they would have improved the high school instead of this other field, but it didn't happen. That's hindsight now, so you can't do anything about it. I understand wanting to make the field better than what it is now. I just think you probably need to look at what the priorities are and figure out what you can do with the money you have before you go in and do something that maybe you don't have enough money to keep going and do the other things. Just an opinion. Thanks.
I'm
done.
Larry, retired check 92 Claremont Ave. I just like to let this, there's no doubt I'm for a turf field. Do we need a turf field? Yes, we do. Okay, but like I say, I just left this bathroom here. We're talking about bathrooms. This is like a combo bathroom. You got vacuum cleaners, garbage pails, light bulbs, mops, toilets, everything in that. It's embarrassing. Anything we have is a total embarrassment because we never do anything right. Now, when did you people get the plans for the field? Tonight when you passed them out to us? These plans here, yeah. No, the ones you handed out to us, that you handed out to the council and you handed out in the audience. When did Mr. Costa bring them in? tonight. So do you honestly think making $1 million decision or a $1.5 million decision that they need to be looked over closer? I'm not saying that, but you can't even really talk about something because you people aren't familiar with the plans, and neither are the residents. They change every other week. Now, I have one question for Mr. Costa, through the chair. That what you were talking about last week where the fans have to come on the field, are the fans still going to come on the field? On your newest set of plans tonight, because they might change tomorrow. Just answer my question. Yes or no answer. Do the fans, on your plans in front of you right now, do the fans come on the field? Okay, but it's a yes or no answer. It's not an explanation. It's just a yes or a no answer. Do the fans walk on? They do. This gentleman here sat next to you right here and told you that he doesn't recommend having traffic on the field. You got chewing gum. Pets was another thing that you got to block out if we turf the field. Can't have pets there, right? Top of the list, right? Yes, he did say. I listened, Mr. Costa. Right.
What he said was that the turf that was used 10 years ago in East Rutherford was a stronger turf. That you could actually.
Okay, but you know what? How many fields have you said you did 95% of this area? How many fields have you done where the fans actually have to walk on the turf to get to their seats? And give me some examples.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I am familiar with a lot of fields.
I would say at least half of them.
Half of them. The fans actually walk on the field.
Yeah,
give me an example off the top of your head. In this area. Woodridge?
Of where fans actually walk on the
yes.
field?
Lodi?
Yeah,
Karlstadt?
There are portions of almost all of these fields.
All of
that
them.
Fans walk on.
Like I said, I've never been to one because you're always kept off the turf. That's one of the rules. You're kept off the turf and you're kept off the track by that fence.
Yeah, let me.
And we don't have the room. See, that's our problem here. We're in a banjo box here. We put all of these fences up. Forget about it. You're going to like being in jail. You're not going to be able to move anywhere. Our facility is too small for the activities that want to be played on.
Can I just help you understand this?
Go ahead.
Please?
Go ahead.
Just to reiterate what I did say before. I said in high traffic areas, meaning running from first home plate to first base. That's
no, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the fence. All right,
I
don't care about that. That's not important to me right now. But the thing that we don't have the room here. We do not have the room. We don't have the parking. And like I say, Mr. Samaruka, you made a comment last week. Someone asked you, Malaria, I believe, asked you, said, what's the total cost? Oh, I have no idea. If you're going to build a house, would you start building a house and say, I have no idea, with the total cost of all three phases? Just watch the TV. You have nothing to do.
All three phases?
Yeah.
No, then I don't.
Yeah, but you said you don't have the. So how can you even enter into something?
Because, well, I'll give you your time.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You have to know your plan. What is your plan? Obviously, turf is number one. Okay? Are the bathrooms number two? Are the parking lots?
I told, when Rich was here, you heard me.
Right,
I talked about what the second, if you want to talk about phases,
Andrew, we do things here wrong, never completed. Another thing, Mr. Costa, approximately how much dirt is going to have to be brought in there to raise them grades up?
What we're doing, Larry, with the plans, and I'm not sure if the public has it. One side of the field, obviously, where the ramp is, that will remain the same.
Right.
As you walk towards the railroad tracks and to the west, that will come up roughly, I guess, about 2 feet.
All right, and how much dirt do you estimate that to be?
Don't think about
Well, I'm just going to ask you, if at a certain amount, do you need a permit to bring soil in and have the soil checked?
Of course you do.
Of course you do. So there are permits and stuff that you have to get to do
Larry,
this.
as far as the dirt you're going to bring in, you're going to bring in EGA, you're going to bring in stone dust.
Right. But how much? How much? You can't move that massive amounts of soil. If you bring 5 loads in, okay. If you bring 10, if you bring 20, you know what I'm saying?
Why is that?
Why? Because you need a permit to move soil from one spot to another spot. I don't care who you buy it from. Okay? When I did my tanks at my station, I needed a permit to backfill. Okay? And I took about 36 tandems worth of dirt. Okay? Because I had it. I know that, but you still need permits to do things. Like you're telling Mr. Rivera, you don't need permits. If you people put this application in front of one of the boards, there's no parking. It would immediately be knocked down.
We can debate this all night. That's not what I said.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. We need to do things the right way.
Recommendation by the planning.
Okay.
You do not need permission
Okay,
from the planning.
but I'm just saying, it's got deficient parking. Look how many deficient things there are. No bathrooms, no parking. I mean, what else? And the same thing with the neighbors here. This is directed towards the mayor. You gotta, I think you're working on straightening out Jamrose, and it wasn't that bad this weekend. But I mean, you gotta give these people the same courtesy and enforcement that you give Jamrose, Kuhn, and Bell. Because their houses are no different. The only difference is at night, and it's on Sundays also. But there's definitely a parking problem there. You know, once you go into that cul-de-sac, you got to block it off. There's no parking in there, and you got 3 teams coming in there. There's 3 different swaps: the little kids, the middle kids, and it's a massive congestion there. It's not the space or the place to put it. You know, you just got to think of what you're doing. You're throwing
But
$1.5
it's
million
there already.
in.
You're making it seem as if this is some kind of farmland and we're going to put something
No,
there.
it's not. We
a
know what it
field.
has.
All we're doing
So why
is
wouldn't
making
you
it
look
bigger.
someplace else? And you
We
don't,
own 3 pieces of property. 4 pieces of
Andrew,
property.
right?
We
But
own
we talked about the border.
Avon. You want
Other
Avon?
towns make it
You
work.
want Fifth
Other
Street?
towns make it work. You know, the parking is the big issue there. And you know what I mean? There's no bathroom should be high priority right now before you even turf the field. Should get a plumber there. You got the money or whatever, and put the bathrooms in right away. I mean, the people have to, you know, you like Rich McKay says, I'm embarrassed. I don't have an answer for him. And you people as residents should go into I know you all can't go into the men's room, but you'd be embarrassed to go into our bathroom at a town hall. You'd be embarrassed. It's a shame, and it's been like that for 10 years. So it just didn't happen. We have no room to store brooms, never mind parked cars. You got all the brooms, the mops, the vacuum. You've been in there, Angela. Like I say, everything we do is half-assed. Everything we do. Let's try to do it the right way for once. Do it nice and slow. Get a master plan. Put it in front of you. And if it does become millions and millions of dollars, put it out to the people. And let the people decide whether we're going to spend the money or not. Thank you.
I just wanted to make one comment, and that is, again, this field is there now. The kids are playing on it. All that this is doing, when people talk about parking and talk about lights and this and that, the lights are there. The parking has been there since the beginning. You know, nobody here has determined the parking, or we didn't develop the parking situation. It's there. All that we're doing is leveling out what's not level, putting drainage where there's no drainage, and basically giving it a wig. You know, instead of dirt and grass, and more dirt than grass, we are putting brand new field turf. So for people to say there's no parking, well, what do we do? If we do nothing with Veterans Field, there still will be no parking or limited parking. There still would be lights, and it would be not a good place to play. I mean, Vinny talked about it. People don't want to play there. So, Nancy came up and said you stand with boots on and you're going to get all full of mud. So there's nothing that this plan is doing that is changing anything. I mean, it's making it better, but we're not putting it, like I said, it wasn't a parking lot and we're making a field and all these people are going to be playing there. It's been a field for 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is. In terms of the bathrooms, I understand that Mr. Camilleri brought up. I wouldn't want to have a porta-john in there, but listen, I didn't build it. He didn't build it. It had no bathrooms to begin with. So there are no porta-johns, there are no internal bathrooms, there's porta-johns. When we talk about a master plan, I don't want to lose $400,000 because we're fighting over where the bathrooms should be. Listen, you wouldn't need porta-johns and you wouldn't need bathrooms if no one was playing on the field. I mean, let's figure it out. You know, you don't. The main thing is people playing on the field. Then there's the accompaniments. And there are bathrooms. Are they sufficient? No. But that would be the next thing that we would look at, would be to fix that building, and as part of that, to get bathrooms in there. That's the worst thing that we can do, is just say, throw bathrooms in there, have a crappy field, but now we've got bathrooms. I think do the field first, and then worry about the other things. Like I said, fix the storage, fix the bathrooms, fix or try to help the parking. And what Rich had said is that in Norristown, we have 100 spots or so at Norristown that they allow us, by the grace of God, and thank God for them, that we can have people park there. And maybe we've got to do a better job of directing, especially out-of-towners, to the Norristown lot, because there's 100 spaces there. Riggins Field, there's, like Joel said, there's not one space over there. In terms of doing it on the, putting it elsewhere on the county, I mean, that's county property. We own Avon, we own Fifth, we own Veterans. That's pretty much where all our recreation is. Everything else is Board of Ed property, and we try and divvy it up as much as possible. But for people to say, don't do this field because we have no bathrooms or there's not enough parking, that's not going to change. The kids, unless you throw the kids off the field and then turf or just pave over Veterans Field or make it into condos, they're still going to play there. But it's not a good situation. So make it good. Give them a good field. Then we worry about the second place. I talk to my hands because I'm tired. So the next phase, if you want to talk about it, and I wish, like I said in the beginning, I wish that we could have come up with numbers already, do one bond and fix everything at the same time. That's not happening. Let's get it done before we lose $400,000. It's almost 25% of the cost of this renovation. And for people to say, let's wait, let me give you an example of what happened. We waited for years. We didn't get the new fire truck. Why? Because it didn't fit in Hook and Ladder. It didn't fit there. So what I said, I came on, I was like, well, just make Hook and Ladder a little bigger. Just put the, build an addition to that, so this way we can fit it in. And they kept studying it and studying it and studying it, and to the point where, well, we have to buy the engine first, so we know we're going to buy it, and then we're going to build this thing. It's like, it takes a year to get a fire engine. Build it, put it in there. By waiting for years and years and years, the cost of that same machine went up by $400,000. Do we want to do that? I can't see that working at all. I can't see it working. Why are we waiting? Why are we doing study after study? You want to be like the river? We can have 25 years of the Corps of Army Engineer studies, and we're still back to the same place. It's a field. It's not in good shape. We need to fix it. My position. I can stop.
Good evening, Robert White, 595 Maple Ave. Mr. Simonucci, you're talking about basically, I want to start out by saying I wasn't going to go in this order, but Mr. Simonucci brought up about the $400,000 grants. What I'd like to know, and I guess maybe my question is directed at Peter Rodico. Are we definitely tied in that? So Veterans Field, but can it be, like Mr. Dorminio said, can it be amended? Or
Costa and I were at the meeting, we checked, they said no.
What about extended?
That we didn't. Right now it's December 2014. That's the date.
Basically what they said to us that day was, they extended it December, get your plans in, get your specs in, show us that you're in motion to do something. And if you don't, what's going to happen, that pool of money is going to go back into a pot that's going to be given to other communities. What I think it's also going to do is they earmark the money for Saddlebrook because Saddlebrook came to them saying, you need this money. If you don't do the improvement, and that means I knew in the future when you want to go back to that draw, you're going to say, you know what? You're just going to procrastinate again, and we're not going to give it to you because we're going to give it to Barclay, we're going to give it to Lona, because they're going to use it and we're going to see the money spent.
And Bob, I believe that the money was there only because other towns hadn't used it. They didn't utilize it, so it went back in that pot, and we got a nice chunk of change. We got $400,000.
When he and I initially said the person that we would apply for, he told us that we came in at a good time because the monies that were available were taken from the other towns because they didn't utilize those funds. So we literally did a pot of gold. Now, if we lose this, as Rob stated, as he stated, it's gone indefinitely, then we start the process over, 4 or 5 lakes.
Is it tied just to the field itself? Could it be used for bathrooms or parking, or is it in other words, is it tied to the facility or just the field?
I think the grant was specifically to turf the field.
Open
space.
Okay. My other question is, how are we getting the other 400,000? It's a matching grant, I'm assuming. How are we getting the other 400,000, if I may ask?
We have the money, and we had $300,000 in reserve for recreational projects, I believe. And what we did was, apparently the state sent us back $100,000 for pension. They reduced the pension bill, and what we did. So what we did was, when it came in, we earmarked that to recreation, to this field, which brings you up to the $400,000, which is matching. So we have that. We don't have to bond for that. Again, the bonding right now, because that's a question. I think the estimate right now is $1.8, $1.9 million. We have $800,000 of that's available through the grant and from what the town has. Of the additional, let's say 1.1, 1.2 million, you got to remember there's almost $300,000 in contingencies, so 20% for contingencies in these engineering fees. So this hasn't gone out to bid yet. Now we can reject the bid. I mean, if it comes in too high, we can reject the bid. But assuming the best, being very optimistic, they come in less than the cost estimate, and we don't have that many contingencies or overages, we can come in less. You bond for a number, but if you don't use it, it goes back. We don't have to pay it back. So hopefully that 1.1, 1.2 might not be 1.1, 1.2.
I feel that both sides of this issue have a lot of good points on both sides. I think what Mrs. Murray said and then what Mr. Ratajczyk reiterated, to me, is the most compelling, in that I just feel that we don't have a master plan here. And in my opinion, I think that instead of doing the turf, and I understand it's tied and we're going to lose the 400,000, and that is a good point as well. But it seems to me, when you're building a house, you start with the foundation, okay? And I know this field was there, so we were, in a sense, stuck with inadequate parking, a small field, built on wetlands. You inherited that, okay? But to me, why not try to fix those things first before you go for the glamorous turf field? I mean, the field is usable. I know it's embarrassing, and somebody brought up a good point that, well, some teams with lacrosse, they don't want to play on it. But all in all, you could still use the field. To me, I don't know. I just think we're rushing this for some reason. And I don't know what I said it the last time I spoke about it. I don't know what the reason is. But all I know is that I feel, from talking to a lot of people in town, now there's a lot of people here from Stonegate, okay? But this is not just a not in my backyard issue. It really isn't. There's people, young and old, okay, that have a lot of problems with this issue, with this field. Now, something that's a problem, okay, for people that are in favor of it is, look at the news. I mean, it's really the last couple of weeks, and it's a bad thing for people that are in favor of it. It's a lot of negative publicity that's going on, and they're bringing up a lot of good points. That you had problems in Ridgewood. I know it was different apples and oranges, but at the there's problems in Glen Rock. There's problems in Washington Township. I just think that we ought to look at all the alternatives first. The timing doesn't seem to be right. Again, the negative publicity. I know we entrust you, your government officials. We entrust you. We've elected you to do the right thing. But my feeling is, on this particular issue, because it is so controversial, and believe me, it is. I'm telling you, I've been out there talking to people. okay? And there's a lot of people that are against it. Some for, some against. I don't know, 50-50, 60-40, I don't know. I think more people are against it. That's what I'm hearing. And believe me, I listen to people. I listen to what they have to say. And again, both sides have good points. But why not this? And I brought this up the last time. Why not do a non-binding referendum or ballot question? Let the people decide. They're the taxpayers. They got to pay for it. Put it non-binding. Say, what do you think? Let's get the pulse of the community. And I think you're going to find that there's a lot of people that are against it. So you know what? That should matter to you. It should matter to you because, again, you're elected by the people. If the people are against it, the majority of people, then you shouldn't vote for it. I really think that would be a good idea, in my opinion, to put it on a ballot. Make it non-binding. You know what I mean? You don't have to, if it's voted down, you don't have to. You can go back and research it a little further, come up with a better alternative. But my opinion is that's what you should do. Because I do believe, from talking to the public, that they have a lot of concerns, valid concerns. And again, I'm not saying, I would love to see something nice for the kids. I would love to see a turf field. I would. But I just don't think it's the right project. I think you ought to fix up the other things first. Do it the right way. Do it in that order. Well, you know what? Well, you know what, Mayor, what about this? You know what? What about this? It's a good question.
No coaching?
Right, okay. I'm sorry. I don't know. You're saying it's earmarked for the turf, so I have to accept that. When you say, well, the field, what about if you just did the drainage, like Mr. Darminio said? Just do the drainage and then sod it or even just seed it. How is that?
That would be much more costly than in the future. We're going to rip up the field, we're going to put drainage. Then we're going to put the grass seed back there, more maintenance, more work, more time. And then down the road, you're going to rip all that grass up again and then put the sod in.
Well, the sod is expensive, but you.
Makes no sense.
Well, I'm not saying, well, that's your opinion, Mayor. Thank you. Thank
Let me just say something that.
Sure.
Let me just say something that when we first talked about this, Mr. Costa did a study, because remember, to redo the field with sod, you're going to have to pay for the sod, obviously. You're going to have to rip out the irrigation, and then you're going to have to put it back again. The difference basically is about $400,000, which is what we're getting. We're pretty much getting the turf for free. If you just fixed it and made it a grass field, it costs about $350 less, $400,000 less, something about there. So the difference is not in the realm of things. That's including contingencies. So it's a few $100,000 less to do that. But what everyone is saying is that if you put sod there with 5 teams playing, you're probably going to lose an entire season, as opposed to not losing an entire season, because the sod's going to take time to come in, and the first time when it's not mature and you got kids running on it, it's gonna rip up. So the $400,000 goes for the turf. To do it the right way and fix it and make it a level, drained field, it still costs over $1 million. Could we do the $400,000? Sure, we could, but the $400,000 would be to pay for the turf. The county is basically giving us the turf. We'd make it better, a facility that's very well used, and we just make it nicer. And I don't want to be the one to have somebody come into town and say, gee, you guys got great bathrooms over there. Your field is horrible, but I love going to the bathroom at Veterans Field. It's wonderful. You know, you got marble and everything like that. I mean, the field is the thing. The field is the thing that draws the people to the stands, and the bathrooms are going to be worked on. But I think anybody is going to say that you don't go to a football game to go to the bathroom. You go to watch football, and you go to play football. That's, again, I think. Yes.
In defense of the public and the people sitting here, we have a plan in front of us, well, that's, that was presented this evening, and it does have a plan here that it calls for almost double the proposed parking spaces. We've got 116 spaces where there's 62, I believe, right now. It does call for removing the existing building that we were told it's not up to code and it's really kind of useless and dangerous, in some people's opinion. It does also call for proposed snack stand and bathrooms, and proposed storage building 24 by 50 is on this plan also. You remove the water department building and expand the parking lot. There is a plan here in Flint, and I have to say that my vote is going to be based on this getting done.
Right.
I mean, I'm all for the turf, I am. But again, like Mr. Darminio said, when we did this years ago, okay, we had a vision and we knew it was going to be a work in progress. But what happens is other things came first and they got pushed back. And I got to commend the RAC because they've made do with what they've had. And they've come up with some innovative solutions and stuff. But there's always going to be something else, always going to be something else. And at this point, this plan looks pretty good to me. It's increasing your parking, which is a big concern of a lot of people. Bathrooms, trust me, I want to see them go in tomorrow and everything else. So that's, again, in defense of you guys that may not have seen this. So I would like to do that.
I understand that. And it would be nice though if we had a cost for it. That would
No
help.
doubt about it,
Okay.
and that's going to come next.
And I do think it does, you're right, it does need to get done. Mr. McKay said that, and I think that's important. I know my 10 minutes are up. Can I just say one other thing? May I just say one thing real quick? Not a question, because I forgot to say it. It's not on my list here. I forgot. I just wanted to mention there was an article today in the Record about West Milford and how they initially wanted to do a solo project, but they ended up teaming up with the Board of Ed, which is a good thing. And they said something in there I found quite interesting, was that, which I didn't know, but the schools are exempt from certain DEP regulations. So if we were to end up doing something at the high school because of the flooding issue there, that we might be exempt from that. So I just thought that was a good point. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. We talked about a foundation. We didn't. The person at the podium did. The football field, or the field itself, is the foundation of Veterans Field. Without the field, like Andrew stated before, nothing happens there. You take away the field, it's just an empty lot. And we need to fix the field and then make the other improvements, like Ms. Mazur stated, are in the plans. But you need to start somewhere. If we don't start, it's never going to happen. Never.
Harry, did you have something you wanted
Yeah, I
to say?
just wanted to, this might be helpful in the public understanding, because I don't think we talked about this before, but there's two major components of building a synthetic turf field. One of them is the turf system itself, which is the carpet and these little pellets of sand and rubber that make up the turf system. And then there's what's underneath that, which we, in layman's terms, we refer to as the drainage system, okay, or the civil work that's going to get done underneath the field. So those two pieces of the puzzle there, and that's just the turf, that's not any of the ancillary stuff we're talking about here. Those two pieces, when you build the field the first time, about 45% of the cost of those two items to build the field is in the drainage system underneath the field, okay? So when the field reaches its life expectancy of, say, 12 years, you're not going to go back and need another $1 million to build a new field again. The drainage system will be there in place and intact for another 4 or 5 cycles of turf. So what happened is the justification, I just want to just read you quickly, and this is not to sell you, okay? It's that there are so many communities. I've been doing this for 20 years now. I've attended many meetings like this before. So I just want to share with you some of the municipalities that have elected, that have gone through this exercise and done their due diligence and considered what the residents had to say. And the decision to go forward to build the field has, and I would say to you, call any one of them to ask them if it was the best thing they ever did for their town. Because it does make sense in so many different ways. Fairlawn has, Asper Heights, Woodridge, East Rutherford, Wallington, Lodi, Garfield, Rochelle Park, Paramus, Glenrock, Ridgewood, Franklin Lakes, Oakland, Mahwah, Ramsey, Oradell, River Edge, Ridgefield, Fort Lee, Bergenfield, and Dumont. That's a certain, there's many, many more in Bergen County out there. But the point I just want to bring out there factually to you is if there's a grant available for $400,000, that's about the cost of the turf itself, okay? So you're going to be improving with the rest of these dollars. You're building this drainage system that's going to be there for 50 years or so going forward. So, and I will tell you now, I would challenge anybody, that field that you have now that's not in great condition, I will say to you now that it cost you a minimum, and the number I'm figuring here is $35,000 a year. I bet you it extends past $50,000 when you consider wages, water, painting, chemicals, fertilizers, and everything else that goes into that field there, employee benefits that take care of it. So if you took that $35,000 after round one, if this is paid for with that grant money, and you go to replace the field, $35,000 times 12 years, you have the money to replace the turf for free. Not for free. It's in your budget and you're spending it now. Every year you're spending it in that field. You're just not, it's going to come out of the budget somewhere and go into a pot. And in 12 years when the field needs to be replaced, the money will be there to replace it without reaching out for more tax dollars. I hope that's simple enough.
You may have used up your 10 minutes.
I thought that
You're here on the
this is the
rebound?
public portion, right, Mr. Simaluka?
All right, before you were a public official, now you're a concerned citizen.
Well, look, I think we can concede that I'm the former mayor, but and I developed that Veterans Field. But Mr. DiPiazza, I kind of question. Look, there's no question. Turf Field is, you're not selling us anything. We know it's great. We know it's good. It's a good product. The question is, can Saddlebrook afford it? But my question is, and here's what the pitfalls we had in building Veterans Field. And my God, I didn't think we were so spoiled that now the field is so bad that it's the most worst thing that ever happened to Saddlebrook. I mean, this is crazy. But the biggest pitfall, and the question I have for you, Mr. Costa, will the DEP allow us to put the 2 feet of dirt on upgrading that west side going to the east side? Do we have any issues with that? Because that was the pitfall we had in going on to Macon Veterans Field. And the only other thing I want to say to the public, that football field, we had a Meadowlands Super Bowl there. I mean, as many of the Stonegate residents will tell you, and the parking obviously was an issue, and North Stand helped us. But the only deficiency with that football field, quite frankly, is the end zone. The end zone was what wasn't up to code. But the biggest problem that we had is with the state regulations. You're going to alter that field. You're going to alter that wetlands. That's where the wetlands are. That's where we have encroached on the wetlands. So I'm asking you, with your professional opinion, is that going to be an issue for? Are we going to get locked into purchasing this and going out to bid and approving everything, and then all of a sudden come to find out that the DEP is going to say, "Oh, wait, guys, we've already allowed you to encroach on that wetlands. Anything more now is going to impact the rest of the area."
We are not going past any of the physical improvements that are there now.
But that's not my question. We are already encroached on the wetlands. You are 25% on that west side is wetlands. The state gave us permission to use that state lands. But you're adding 2 feet of...
It doesn't matter. We're not taking away wetlands. We're not going any further into that corner.
I don't think I'm making myself clear, I think. Let me talk in...
Right now, you maintain it.
Right.
There's grass there, you maintain it. It's all grass up to that county pathway.
But now you're adding elevation, you're adding whatever you're adding.
There, where the current field is, where the physical playing field is.
What I'm trying to tell you, and I think if you look at the plan, is some of that playing field is on the wetlands. That's what you don't understand. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
Right now, I would be amazed if the physical playing field is a wetland.
It's what?
It's not a wetland.
Okay, so you're saying that it's not a wetland.
Physical playing field is definitely not a wetland.
Okay. I mean, you piqued my interest, but I didn't realize Mr. Simaluki was saying the field's so bad that, I mean, come on. The kid for 12 years have been playing on it, and yes, it does need improvement, but it needs to be maintained.
You know what I think it is, and again, certainly there's a lot of public, there's a lot of coaches, even one of the councilmen is a coach in football. All of these other communities are going through this, because when we were kids, we didn't have all of these organized programs. You can't do it on grass.
Mr. Costa, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, I was.
We played in the streets. I mean, they didn't have this type of activity all year round.
What are you talking? We expanded the lacrosse program. We increased our recreation program here in the community. It's all good things. And yes, these other municipalities are going towards the turf fields. That's fine. If you didn't need money for other things, I mean, that's fine to do that. And yes, that field needs to be maintained and upgraded. But it hasn't been for the last few years. That field has not been. And question, Mr. President, we're going to go out, obviously, you're going to go out to bid. So, Mr. DiPiazza, are you the only one that's going to provide the turf field for Saddlebrook, or are we going to get any other vendors in that are going to do the turf fields? You got to go out to bid, I would think.
I believe you had a state contract.
Yeah, they're correct.
Yeah, but you're over a limit,
No, there's a cooperative purchasing program where you can elect to purchase something that's been previously publicly bid, and the field turf system has been previously publicly bid.
So you're the company that would be doing the installation of the field. Well, obviously, I'm asking you. You're going to be the one. There's not going to be anybody else here. Is that?
We can do one or two things. Okay? We could bid on everything and have let's say it's Joe Sanzari wins the bid, and he can go to whoever he wants, and there's going to be a 10% markup. Or we could purchase the turf through the cooperative and go out to bid on all the groundwork. So all they're doing is providing the material and laying it down. So this way we would avoid the overage. And you know, whenever you do something, the GC is going to get 10% or more.
Well, the professionals are going to get 10%. I mean, everybody's going to get their cut of the pie.
In this case, they wouldn't, because they're not going to go out and charge us $500,000 for something that we would get directly from them for $450,000.
The only thing, and really, the purpose I'm here for is it's just strictly for the fact that the pitfalls that we encountered, I don't want to see happen again to the township, and it's just advising you. I know that we had the major problem with the DEP on that wetland property. And that's all. I mean, whatever you decide to do, obviously you guys are going to do. You got a plan. Whether or not that plan gets executed, I mean, I know how these things go.
We'll definitely look into it. But
you know
what? You purchased it, you did a great job back then, you built it. I think you should take it to the next level. I know you're saying there's people that hate it, want it, this and that, but at the end of the day, you look at all these other communities with these kids. These kids, what they're saying is true tonight. This town can afford this. On this, to start on this project.
I don't think anybody in an elected office would think that the kids don't deserve it. Obviously, they do. We'd like to give it. I'd like to get 6 more police officers on the police department, too, but I can't do it.
This community can afford it. Quite frankly,
The what? What did you say?
It can afford it. And I think, quite frankly, the county is going to give you more money. Get the plans there.
That's a promise. Today's the only note you have. Tomorrow's a promissory note, my friend.
You know what? Based on that meeting, I'm confident.
Yeah, well, you and I both have been in this business a long time, Bob. I mean, you know.
I'm pretty confident they're going to give you some more money.
Oh, okay. All right, you just piqued my interest on that wetlands, because that was a problem, and it cost us a lot of money to get over that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jerry Taylor, 318 Sheppes Avenue. I am the Director of Recreation. And this field itself, can we now, Mr. Halka, you said about the bathrooms going up for grants. Whether the field gets done or not, can we put that process into effect where we can get...
Next year's community development. I mean, whoever is sitting up here, I mean, they should put in for that.
This way, at least, on the worst case, you can get your bathrooms all upgraded and all. As far as the parking goes, we do have an agreement with Norristown, all right? They're very kind to give us their parking lot. And 9 times out of 10, when there's a big event going on, there's a special sitting there at the parking, right by the field itself. So this way people don't go parking inside by the townhouses. And this way, once that parking lot is filled, they send them back to Norristown's lot. Usually I have 2, one there, one on each end, because you want to have some security in the Norristown lot because of the fact that they're letting us use their parking lot. I am an official. I'm a football official, 28 years. I love turf. Turf is the best thing for me. It's the best thing for the kids. I was in the Meadowlands this past December. I had the Hasbrook Heights game against Pompton Lakes. Last 5 minutes, poured. I mean, it poured. I couldn't see across the field, and it poured. Field was fine. All right, it drained very well. And I stayed for the second game. Paramus Catholic played after that against St. Peter's. Field's fine. All right, the ball gets wet, but the field is fine. And I think it's a great thing to do. I think the kids deserve it. All right, we have the grant. We don't want to lose the grant. Some people might think we're rushing into it, but technically you are because you're going to lose the grant come December. So, I'm fully in favor of it. Thank you very much.
Anybody else wish to address the council on Veterans Field? Yes, I think you had a question. Do you want to? You have to say, for the record, you just have to state your name and address.
Claudia Nicholson, 47 Sampson Street. We're directly across from this field. What are the ramifications of the whole project on the street? You're saying that the field will never flood again. What about the surrounding homes? Is there any guarantee as to that?
Have you had, and I don't know, have you had flooding issues there?
No, we have not. Okay. But once you start tinkering with the land, what's going to happen?
Well, what they would be doing is, actually, and I'll defer that to the engineer, but I think they're actually going to add, like you said, $100,000 gallon, what Mr. Dominion said, basically a detention basin to hold all that water. So I would think, if anything, you would have less of an effect.
With climate change being what it is nowadays, though, you never thought that we would be affected on a regular basis by hurricanes, right? But everything changes now. So you have to take that into consideration. Now the gentleman is saying, well, we knew it really wouldn't work in Ridgewood, but why would we turn the money away? So this is the kind of company we're going to trust ourselves with?
What was your advice, Barry,
to Richard? We just made it clear that, they asked the question about the property, and they certainly had their licensed professionals representing the school district and the municipality as to where they were going to put the field. So as far as, it wasn't a decision we were making on their behalf. They understood that if the field was put in those locations, that they would have remediation from time to time when these major storm events came in. And they felt, I guess, the decision was made that the need for it was that important that they would be willing to pay the remediation costs as these events took place. But everybody was well aware that the field was in a floodway.
Okay, because according to Mr. Costa, these systems are not meant or rated for that kind of flow and pressure. But yet, you guys went ahead with the project. They did too. So as a community, we're supposed to say, well, it's in your hands. You're the professionals. You know better. But in other communities, it's coming up that maybe the officials don't know any better.
Well, we may have better officials than we do, because they built their fields next to a river. I mean, if this field was being built, let's say on Coolidge, or somebody said build it on Coolidge, I mean, the first thing that happens when the Saddle River overflows, Coolidge is under 5 feet of water. Certainly, if that was the choice, I would definitely say no. But I don't think there's ever been a flooding event there. We're talking about a river flooding event, not a lot of rain, but we're talking about a river flooding event. That's happened at the high school field, because a lot of people talk about the high school field, but at least two times in the last 15 years, the high school field is under 1.5 feet of water.
And fecal matter, yes.
And fecal matter.
How will the residents be affected, though? Because I think that the residents should be taken into consideration.
Well, I don't think that the people on Sampson and Stonegate are gonna feel anything at all because of this. Like I said,
It's a major construction project.
it's really not. You're raising the field and you're putting drainage in, which is what you need in that area, at least for the field. And the field will drain and there's gonna be a glorified detention basin underneath. So if you didn't flood before, there's nothing that's being constructed there. Listen, if they were concreting the whole place and there was water runoff all the place, then I would agree with you. If there was a building there, if there was 200 townhouses, like somebody said, certainly it would have some effect, but it's still going to be open land with additional drainage, better drainage than you have now.
And if I could just follow up to your question, the reason our company actually sold them the field is they solicited field turf because the system that field turf that's intended for here as well. Our company has a design on a system that uses, just keep it simple, every square foot, there's about 9.5 pounds of sand and rubber. Most systems are lightweight. They have anywhere from 3 pounds to maybe 5.5 pounds of weight of sand and rubber per square foot. So the reason they solicited field turf and decided that field turf was the best product for an application like that, because that amount of weight will keep the carpet in place during those storm events. So it was the best product for that application, for that environment there. And remember, we were there to accommodate this scenario that they had, but we had the best system for their needs at the time. And it did survive those flood events, but it doesn't cost them money to remediate.
Rob, could you just address some concerns? I'm sure she's not speaking just on her own behalf, but maybe some other people at
Obviously,
Stonegate.
it's not apples and apples. I don't know what transpired there just a couple of weeks ago.
I heard that. This flooding event, Harry, that was a couple weeks ago.
But keep in mind, let me just say one other thing. This is the field in Ridgewood. This is the field, okay? This is the other field, right here. In between those fields, there's a little bridge that's about 8 feet wide, and there's a raging brook goes right by. I can stand on the field and reach over and touch the water. That's how close it is, and it's a floodway. It rages. This is not a topic. Ridgewood is totally non-applicable to this scenario here.
That's fine, but I also had a concern about how the residents will be affected. How long will the project take? Will there be delays? Is our street going to be blocked off for prolonged periods of time? Are we going to have gravel and all sorts of debris dumped all over the place?
I'll defer to the person who's going to be overseeing the
I would
construction.
say, are you going to have some impact? No doubt. Absolutely. If I told you no, I'd be lying to my teeth. Yes. This project, start to finish, as far as the heavy construction, probably 6 months. I would say at the worst case scenario, put in the drainage, do all the work, dirt work. And then again, for these guys, I don't know what you do.
Harry, you don't think it's going to take 6 months?
Well, I mean, I don't know what else is involved in the plan. The turf installation itself would be about 4 weeks, and the prep for the turf should be somewhere 4 to 6 weeks or so. That's just the field.
6 months. But when you start and finish, because if I told you 3 months, you'd be calling my office every day saying, why is it done? I'm going to tell you, the worst case scenario is 6 months. From start, the minute the first noise you hear on the street, to the last one you hear in the finish, I would say it's 6 months time. If it's better, then you can say thank you.
If it's better, it's great. I just think that such
But
a
I think
huge
I wanna be
project
realistic.
needs phases and total planning. You can't go into it blind. You can't say, well, we don't know how much this will be, but let's just start right now because we don't want to miss out on this money. I get it. Everybody has a budget. Everybody wants to maximize their dollar, but it's like using a coupon on an item you don't need just because you want to use the coupon.
People have used that analogy, and I appreciate that, except that we feel that, at least I do. Listen, I'm just one vote. I feel that it's needed.
How long have we been researching this now?
Months.
It's not something we just came up with. This has been going on for months. My next question to Bob, real quick. The drainage, retention basin. It fills up, it drains out. Where's it drain out?
Drains out to the northwest.
In the corner. In the
back corner.
That corner goes through the railroad.
Goes underneath the railroad, ultimately out the south. It's where it goes down. Actually, Actually, it goes past the councilman's house.
Yes.
Kelly O'Connell, Dewey Avenue resident. The Veterans Field actually is in back of my house, and I welcomed the project when it came because it was just woods. And I certainly didn't want 260 some odd apartments back there. But there are other issues besides the field. I think it's a great idea. The trash, the bathrooms. When my wife is doing the dishes and there are people urinating in the bushes on the other side of the parking lot, it's a big issue for me. There's not enough coverage on the back of that field back there to block. I don't even care about the lights.
How close to the corner are you, sir?
I'm the second house in.
Second house in. And are there arborvitaes and blackout fences? I mean, that's
All the,
seems like an easy repair.
they have these pine, Dewey, right on the corner of Dewey and Sampson, second house in. Parking lot's in my backyard. Thank God I have a big enough bush back there that the headlights don't affect me, but every other neighbor does not have that luxury.
They don't realize that you're out there talking.
Like I said, I appreciated it when the field was built, and I've been back there, and it is a mess when it rains. So I do welcome this turf, but the second and third phases absolutely have to be followed through on. It's just there's just no two ways about it.
Maybe we can give you some immediate help with like I said,
and
not silt fence, but
and the traffic, parking. You know, you can see the size of the field. You can see the 3 busloads of out-of-towners coming in, and there are at times. Somebody said there were 2 cops. At times, it's not true. if that, and then the lights are constantly flashing all over the place. So, what do you do about something like that? I don't know. Direct everybody into Norson.
I think we got to do a better job of directing them, or what I was thinking today, thinking about this after talking to Jerry, is possibly sending out a flyer to all the teams. Now, generally, soccer doesn't generate this unless they're having some kind of a tournament or special event. The same thing will lacrosse. It's pretty much football, and that's on a Saturday. That's like 5-6 weekends, 5-6 Saturdays a year.
Right.
What we can do is possibly send an email with to the opposing coaches and say, listen, we'd like you to park here, because they probably don't know. I mean, it's a business, and some people are afraid of getting tickets. So maybe do a better job of telling them to go there.
A sign on Sampson saying veterans parking, pointing right in front of it, right into Norson's parking lot can be.
I think that would work. We put it up before it starts and take it down at the end.
And then the policing of the grounds after an event like that, it's me and some of my neighbors. Pick up the crap that's all over the place. Water bottles, slushies, paper goods. I mean, it's a mess, and it never was.
And what I would suggest, sir, and again, thinking about Norson, I mean, they're being a good neighbor by letting us utilize their property for parking and taking the road off, some of the road off the Dewey and Steinway people. Send our sweeper there early Monday morning, Sunday morning. I know it might be too early, but Monday morning, let's say, before business starts, having the sweeper over there and go through the park. I don't know what their position is.
I'm just letting you know the things that we have to deal with on a weekend basis when these games happen. These events, they're major occurrences in that little cul-de-sac area, and the parking and the roadway's not wide enough.
We appreciate your input.
Thank you.
I think regardless, you have to do something.
Andrew?
Yes, sir.
I just think, again, it kind of gets reiterated here with the bathroom issue, because it is an issue. It's an issue where we do have to look into the bathroom. I mean, I'm there. I'm playing. I see what you're saying. People people will just out and out say, I don't want to go to the bathroom in the porta potty. I'd rather go to the bathroom instead. The bathrooms are an issue. We need to work on the plan.
Sir.
Robert Kubitz, 427 Steinway Road. In most towns, it's the high school field is the main field for most activities. Okay? it seems like you're trying to move more activities here than in any other part of town. You want to dump all the traffic, the noise, the congestion, everything into this one field. And when someone mentions the high school field, your first reaction is, we have to talk to the people on Leswin. When you had parking problems by the Korean church, you talked about the quality of life for the residents around there. Nobody asked us anything. We were never, the first time the field was built, we were never notified. You say we were, we weren't. I live on Steinway, my in-laws own the property on the corner, they weren't notified, my neighbors weren't notified, but that, that's beside the point. The thing is, can't we shift some of these activities away from here? Could maybe just the football go back to the high school? And you can still have the Babe Ruth, the softball, the lacrosse, and the soccer here? Does everything have to be at this field? It seems like, you're doing this so nobody else in town, has any problems. It's just like you're trying to dump it all here.
I think the original purpose of having the field there was to take the rec. I mean, again, I wasn't on the council, and I agreed with taking the rec and giving rec its own spot. Maybe not necessarily where it is, but it was done, and we make the best of it. I mean, it's a field, and it's functional. However, the rec, if you're thinking about all those people, think about it. I mean, maybe this is a good time to talk about it. People, this is not a beauty contest between Veterans Field and the high school. Okay, high school has more parking. High school has a big snack stand. Okay, the high school field actually that they play football on is one of the better grass fields. I don't know if there's any reason to turf it at this time. The problem with the high school field seems to be the surrounding area. Now, I asked Perry to just give a proposed cost to turf the high school, just turfing, no other improvements at all, just turfing. And I think it came out to $3.3 million, plus if because it's such a swampy area, you need an extra inch or two, it would be another $400,000. So now you're at $3.7 million. There are no lights there, okay? Because it's a big field, that's why, that's how that is. It's also had 2 flood events, and people forget that.
But that's always been there. My son played on that field when he played with people.
My son, I think, played
and he played there in the mud, in the rain, and everything else.
And I'm sure when
the kids didn't complain. Nobody got hurt.
Why do I have to clean these muddy clothes full of geese crap?
So what?
Well,
the kids didn't mind.
No, they certainly did.
And but the main issue here is the flooding.
Mm-hmm.
In all these other towns, these fields are out by a highway or an industrial area or something. With us, the field is here, our property is here on Steinway. Before, when there was the DPW there, my property would always flood. I'm right behind where the water trailer is now, because it's like 3 feet higher than my property, and it was sloped toward my property. The only time the flooding stopped was when they put up the curbs and the storm drain in the parking lot. Now, if you're going to open that up to additional parking, are you going to put another curb and storm drain along the fence? Because it's still sloped toward my property.
Well,
if you open up that curbing and by the storm drain, that water is just going to flow onto Steinway.
If we have parking there, and I believe that's the plan eventually, is that would all be curbed, and there would be a drainage.
And what could go wrong? You said there's a big tank, a reservoir, and then a drain from there. When we get a heavy rain, our storm drains, our streets by Hobson and Steinway, they back up, the water shoots out through the manhole covers. What's to stop that drainage from backing up and that water flowing into the Steinway properties? I mean, if somebody asks, what if? I mean, it's a nice rosy picture, everything is fine, but you have to ask yourself, what could go wrong? And if it does, what's your plan for it? Do you have a plan in place? If these pipes freeze, if they get clogged, if something happens, if there's to do something by the railroad tracks to impede that, is it going to back up? Is it going to flow over? Because that's where the natural place for it to go is onto Steinway.
Again, what you have there right now is a grass field. When this is done, you basically have a grass field. You're not building an impervious surface. You're not taking this and putting a cattle along the entire.
But you're talking about raising it.
When I'm talking about raising it, is on that corner. I'm talking somewhere between 6 inches and about a foot. That's it. As far as the drainage that's going in, the whole area will have under drainage. And then out towards where that path is, I call it infiltrators, small little dog houses that collect water and then you put it into the ground for outlet and slow. That's what we're talking about. As far as what's going on by your area, that's when they build the drainage system, it actually is a 2-foot difference in elevation. And the water has to get up 2 feet higher in order for it to drain around the corner of Steinway and back through the station. It actually goes through, I'm not sure the actual address of the property.
But I'm more concerned about the field. What could go wrong? Could things possibly go wrong? Or are you going to say this is 100% foolproof? 100%? 100%. Okay, I'm going to take your word for it.
Sir, can I just ask you a question while you're there? Yeah. Are you like in foul ball territory?
Yes, in fact, I had a broken window already. Where it bounced off my shed and then hit the window.
Again, I was thinking, we all thought about this long and hard and to think about ways to make it improvement. Now, I believe that those telephone poles are going to be a couple of inches closer, so this way they'll be.
I'm behind the backstop. In other words, it comes up over the backstop.
Okay, so you're back. You're in the.
I'm like halfway between the trailer, like the north end of the trailer.
Because the other thing is, on top of those, I don't think it would be a horrific cost to, on top of those poles, to have like a pole sticking out toward Steinway, almost like a netting to catch any other poles. You know, if we stop a couple of broken windows and car dents.
Which is, it's not the problem. I'm just wondering what could go wrong, because it's a big project, and if it's not done 100% correct, you're going to have problems, then it's going to come back to the taxpayers to fix the problem. I want to make sure that you ask all the questions before you commit to this and look at what could possibly go wrong. Because these things pop up, you can say, oh, that'll never happen. You get maybe 2 feet of snow in late March, followed by heavy rains in April, and you're talking a lot of water. Now, could these lines possibly back up, or could it flood over the tops of the field?
As far as
Because of the elevation of the field compared to the property.
the current pathway that's there today will not be touched. So the elevation that's there today is going to remain the same. This is, you understand what I'm saying? And you're back there. You have that cattle path that circumnavigates the fields.
Well, mine is more of the parking lot. I have the mine's more of the parking lot.
Because some of your neighbors might have this concern.
Yes. Well, their property is even lower than mine.
They're lower.
Yeah.
That's going to remain the same. We're not raising that at all. So we're not going to dam up any water there. Because that water runs from there, and again, it runs towards the railroad track. Everything is heading towards the track. So nothing is going to impede that flow. Whatever is happening today will happen tomorrow. If there's an issue going on, then bring it to my attention. Show me, I'll meet you out in the field, tell me this is what's happening, and we look at it. Because I'm not aware of any situation back there. We're not changing the grade in that area to cause this to dam it up and stop. As far as the pipes underneath, they're plastic pipes, they're HDPE pipes. Probably a life expectancy in excess of 50 years, 70 years. So I can't imagine, and again, there'll be clean outs, there'll be if you have to get in and maintain it, you do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Sylvie Zattarelli, 232 Lanza Ave.
Congratulations on your soon-to-be election for the Board of Education.
Thank you very much. If anyone can't see the writing on the wall, we know that this is a go. And I'm not saying that it's not a wonderful thing. Your phase one needs to include bathrooms. We were compared to 4 towns tonight. They kept being brought up. Does every single one of them have a bathroom? Do any of them not have bathrooms?
I don't know that now, sorry.
Well, I do, because my children have played against those towns and we've been on those fields. Every single one has a bathroom. Obviously, the anatomy between male and female are different. It's a lot harder for a woman, especially if you have little kids, to go into a porta potty. It's disgusting. There needs to be bathrooms. Andrew, there's been a lot of joking about bathrooms tonight and all. It's a serious issue. And two wrongs don't make a right. That field was built, those bathrooms are the way they are. There are no bathrooms, there's porta potties. Two wrongs do not make a right. Everyone talks about moving forward and doing things right. Let's do it right. Phase 1 has to include bathrooms. That's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other member of the public wish to address the council? Okay. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close. Mr. Conti? Second, Mr. Camilleri. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The meeting is now closed to the public.